Aero-News Network's coverage of the 60th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Have you ever wanted big glass in your cockpit but didn't have the space? Now with Avidyne's IFD series, touchscreen GPS navigators, and our new IFD 100 iPad app, having big glass in your cockpit is finally within reach.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
True Blue Power Advanced Lithium-Ion Mainship batteries feature proprietary nanophosphate technology. They deliver 3 times the energy density and are more than 40% lighter than lead-acid or NiCad alternatives. RTCA tested, FAA certified, available to OEMs today.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
Southeast Aerospace teamed up with Garmin International, Gables Engineering, and Peregrine Avionics to bring the most cost-effective and flexible ADS-B solution to the business aviation community. Our Part 25 AML STC is available for non-TCAS 2 Beechjet, Citation, Hawker, Learjet, and Falcon Jet. Visit seaerospace.com for more details.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight 4-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
Freeflight Systems is expanding its business into the Part 25 aviation industry through new avionics shop dealers, manufacturer partnerships, and STC programs. With a focus on the next-gen airspace and remote-mounted sensor systems, Freeflight Systems will continue to be a leader in the next-gen airspace. Visit freeflightsystems.com for details.
Explore no-limits flying in the FAA-certified Sea Ray Amphibious LSA, one of the top 3 best-selling LSAs in the U.S. Progressive Aerodyne Sea Ray comes equipped with a Rotax engine and exhibits extraordinary handling on land, water, and in the air. Check it out at www.searay.com.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Redbird Flight Simulations is dedicated to revolutionizing flight training by designing, manufacturing, and delivering affordable and innovative flight training technologies. Each Redbird device is designed to enhance the training experience for pilots of all levels, from student to ATP. Redbird is quickly becoming the industry standard for flight training. Since Redbird introduced its revolutionary FMX in 2007, colleges, universities, and flight training operations around the world have integrated Redbird products into their curriculum. It's time to discover what Redbird can do for you. Join the migration.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics Personal Jet Kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint and you're flying. It's time to put your money where your bucket list is. Learn more at sonicsaircraft.com.
All right. We didn't learn anything yesterday. We're here again at the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. Make a long story short, been a great couple of days. There's been a tremendous amount of excitement over where this industry is going. At the same time, it seems to be having a problem communicating what it is, what it must do, and especially some of the most important issues of the day. While the industry in some ways excuse me, has never been better prepared for 2020 and some of the regulatory issues that are on the horizon, at the same time communicating when, where, how pilots can take advantage of that, especially now with ADSB 2020, becomes paramount. I'm pleased to bring along one of our A&N experts here, especially in marketing communications. This is Mike Turner. He's been with A&N for, God, way too long now.
And despite that, you're still in business.
I'm telling you, pretty amazing. And what I wanted to do for the first few minutes was have a discussion about the issues that we're seeing right now with a vibrant industry, having dealt with a bad economy, having dealt with significant regulatory oversight, having dealt with all these issues, yet it manages to survive, it manages to innovate, and yet it can't quite communicate. Mm-hmm. Mike, what are you seeing out here that, excuse me, really needs to be improved upon?
One thing is getting your message out. Aviation is a tight community. It's a very local community in a lot of ways, and part of that is because of the regulatory framework. You have to have an AMT or aviation maintenance technician's A&P license. You have to have a pilot's license. You have to have repair station license, all under FAA regulation, and that's a barrier to entry. So, because of this barrier to entry, you have a cozy industry, and which is very nice because everybody knows everyone. But the problem is, you begin to assume that that you do know everybody in it. That when you do announce your product, that the word really is getting out to everyone. That's not necessarily the case. When you broadcast, it's one direction. Mm-hmm. It's just outward. You need that feedback saying, yes, the message has been received. We see that in the Aero-News. It's an issue because we broadcast, but yet we need to get feedback too to see what's going on out there. Well, here we are at a premier trade show for the industry, and what do we have as of this morning? 2 or 3 press releases.
At least physical press releases up in the press area.
Yes, yeah. Physical press releases.
We got a fair amount more than that by email, but
yes.
Still, comparison to years ago, it's nothing.
Yeah, and everyone now is relying on the internet. Now, that's not a bad thing. We're about the internet.
We like the internet.
We love the internet. That's the internet is us, right? So, but again, you still need to use many of the traditional methods, like the physical press release. Maybe you don't need to do as many as you did, but you still need to have it out there. The press still is covering what's out there, and the internet is another tool, and I think that's kind of the real lesson. In the old days, you had 3 networks of network television. You had the local and national newspapers. You had trade magazines, and along comes the internet, and more outlets explode, more channels for information explode. And yeah, that's more to manage, but it's also more opportunity. And each one of those outlets is a tool in your toolbox to get your message out, to make people aware of your product, why that product is good for them, the typical features and benefits. But even more importantly, as we get more and more technological, as these systems are more and more complex and they're getting smarter, getting your message out means educating your customer. You have to educate them on what this technology is. The features and benefits will fall from that. You don't have to just hit them over the head with it, but communicate, what is it we're doing? Why is our technology good? What does it mean for the end customer, for the end user? So you have this vast tool chest that you can use. Utilize all of them, and don't forget traditional media. They're not dead yet. And remember, the internet. Yes, you want to use it, but also be cautious. Some outlets are really good, some aren't. You aren't just going to broadcast and the whole world's going to hear you. Everybody else is doing it too. And it's like finding that one drop of water in the ocean. That's really marketing's issue. It's not a needle in the haystack. It's that one drop of water in the ocean.
Okay, so I'm Joe Q, avionics manufacturer, Joe Q avionics shop, Joe Q avionics technician. I'm looking to get my share of business out there. I'm not a PR marketing expert. I don't have the money to go out and hire a big fancy firm or anything else. What should I be doing right now?
The very, very first thing is know who you are and what you do. What are your capabilities? Don't pretend. Don't say, hey, I do A and B, and yeah, I can do C too. No. If you're doing A and B, and this is what you can deliver, good value to your customer, on time, good quality, that's what you do. Now, C is a nice thing to add on. Prepare for it, work at it. So first, know yourself. Second, know your customer. Take some time to know your market. Who are you selling to really? Are you selling to A&Ps? Are you selling to aircraft owners? Are you selling into the biz jet market? Are you selling into the turboprop market? Know your market. Know exactly who and what you're selling to them. Then the biggie is awareness. Make people aware. So if I had an avionics shop and I'm at XYZ Airport, I know most of my business is going to be at XYZ Airport and the surrounding areas, maybe some of the surrounding airports. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and you can dig this up. There's FAA records, how many planes are in the area. You can look up demographics and say, is this an area where everyone pinches pennies, or is this an area where everybody has so much cash they don't know what to do with it? But you can begin to get a feel. You may not have a precise answer to the fifth decimal place, but you get an idea, and you can say, okay, here's the potential in my market. And if there's 1,500 planes around me that could be using my services, okay. Now the question is, who are they? Find out, and then let them know you're here. Let them know you're here, and let them be aware of you, and then they'll be curious, and then educate them.
One of the things, though, that I hear from a number of folks, well, let me give you the broad look at what we do prior to an AEA event. 90 to 120 days out, we start with our list of the folks that we work with each year. We let them know what's coming up, so forth and so on. We ask them for help. We ask them for imagery, B-roll, descriptions, an idea of what press releases may be coming, so forth and so on. Now, not that often, but often enough, I get this, well, I don't have time for that. And my general response to something like that is, well, you don't have time not to. You can either come to these events and get what you want out of them, or you can be ignored. And it's not a matter of trying to ignore or penalizing anybody. It's just simply that we can't report what we don't know. We cannot show what we cannot see or have not seen. And most important, we cannot intelligently discuss something we've not been briefed on. So it becomes important for people to take a little bit of time, get briefed, reach out to us, help us in any way they can to get, I mean, this is a 5 to 10 minute effort in regards to talking to us. I mean, give us a call, tell us what's going on, or for that matter, one of the most intelligent phone calls I've ever gotten have been the, hey, I've got this happening, is it enough for a press release? Well, of course it is. It's just a matter of how you present it, if it's new to you, if it's important to you. If you think it has an impact out there, yeah, it's a press release, but more important than a quote-unquote press release, tell the story. Who are you? What's going on? Why are you special? What is unique about you? And most important, why are you qualified to expound or undertake the actions that you're talking about? And the funny part is that once it's explained a couple of times, they get it and they get it right. There are a couple of companies out here that are masters of the message. They're very, very good at it. I look in particular at Mid-Continent. Julie Lawrence does such a spectacular job for that company. There are a number of others out there that have done really great work. And obviously, you know, you've got the Garmins and the Avidynes and such of the world that know how to communicate. But when you're, when you're Joe ADSB, when you're Joe installer, or whatever the case may be, or Jane installer for that matter, you have something to say, and it doesn't take but 2 minutes to give us a call and ask how to say it. I have no problem working with people like that, because the more we bring them on board with sending the message, the more we can help them craft the message, the more information we have to present to our audience, readers, viewers, and listeners.
One of the most basic human things is to tell a story. Our ancestors handed down information from one generation to the next by telling stories. We still tell stories. The news is stories. You're going to tell someone your story. If you've got an avionics shop, or whether you've got a new ADSB product, you're going to tell your story. Now, you may do it here at a trade show, and you may do it at an exhibit, but write it down. Yep. You're already telling the story, so write it down. When you write it down, you can make a press release out of it. You can make advertising collateral out of it, and then just tell your story, what's going on. Now, and you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be Tolstoy or Shakespeare. It's just tell your story, who, what, when, where, why, how. And it's really as simple as that. The thing is, and Dave Franson and I were talking about this yesterday.
Oh, careful. Start talking to Dave Franson, I don't know.
People put out press releases and they think everybody's going to pick it up. Not so.
No.
Not only do you have to tell your story, but you have to sell, to be really effective, you need to sell people on why they should know your story. So we were talking about how 20 years ago it was a case where, and most people had an ad agency or PR agency, and which isn't so much the case anymore.
No, but, they're gone by the wayside.
But the PR person, everybody thought, oh, these people are getting paid a lot of money to write, 2 pages of press release. Hey, that was just a tiny bit of what they did. They picked up the phone and they said, hey, Jim, you know what's coming down the pike from...
Built relationships, they communicated, they backgrounded things, they educated.
Yes.
And it became... There's this wonderful story I like to tell. There's a fella out here, I don't want to embarrass him because it's kind of... He's not got the best English, but he's got this phenomenal little wire or cable marking wiring system where they mark it, cut it, so forth and so on. We actually did a video with it a bunch of years ago. And his story and how he developed it and how he brought this to life is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And normally I look at something like this and it just would bore me out of my skull.
Yeah.
But he has a compelling story.
Yes.
He has a compelling product, which is surprisingly useful. But then again, in the world of avionics, marking, labeling, and identifying wiring is, a sheer path to making sure you don't wind up with an absolute jumbled mess later on. Fantastic story, and we had the chance to tell it, and all it took was a few minutes of getting to know the guy, getting to know his story, getting to know the background, understanding what it was he had, and the next thing you know, we had a bang-up video of the whole thing. It was great. It worked out tremendously well. I'll tell you what, we've got GoGo on deck here. There's a number of folks we're going to be speaking to throughout the day. I think we've got Andy Davis from Trig on deck down the line, Mike Adamson from AEA, Nathan Hernandez from Southeast Aerospace, Tony Rios from Avionica, Pete Ring from Freeflight, and everybody's favorite regulatory guru from AEA, Rick Perry, to end up the day. So we've got a pretty solid couple hours for you. We're excited to be able to present it all to you. For those of you in the aviation and aerospace world, you know that avionics drives this industry. So we're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment, and we'll look forward to coming back to you here live from the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. See you in a minute. All right, we're back. 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. Say that 3 times fast and see what that gets you. We've had a tremendous amount of fun covering what's happened to the communication system to, from, and between aircraft for the last couple of years, because you think, well, you get an airplane so you can go someplace and talk to somebody. But while you're in the air, business can still be done.
Absolutely.
Things need to be talked about. You still got to make sure that there's dinner at the other end, and a hotel, and a rental car, or for that matter, that things haven't blown up at the office. So who better to talk to than GoGo Business Aviation? Sergio Aguirre, we welcome you first to Aero-News, but tell us, what's new at GoGo?
Well, first, thank you. Very happy to be here. Well, last week on Wednesday, we received our STC approval from the FAA for our new 4G ATG system, which we think is going to really address a lot of the demands that people have now in the air. Interesting, you talked about business and connectivity and how that has been one of the driving factors, but actually now what we have seen over the course of the last few years is that connectivity is no longer associated just with work. If you think about how we use our devices now, connectivity is how we live our life. It's social media, it's entertainment, it's work, it's leisure. So it's really now a very integral part of what we do, and so it's imperative that we stay up with demands of connectivity needs in the sky as well.
Well, the old joke is that you're never far away from a need to communicate, much less the communications devices that we all carry with us.
Yes.
But let's face it, they don't work so well at flight level 350.
Yeah.
However, some folks have changed all that. Now, with this particular certification, what do you see happening to the market?
Well, we see two things happening. One is we see that our install base of about a little over 4,000 active customers right now in business aviation will have the option now to upgrade their systems, which will give them about 3 times the capacity they're currently experiencing right now. So some of the things that we can enable now when you have 3 times the capacity inside an aircraft is now the ability to be a lot more liberal with some of the features like some of the things like FaceTime, the social media,
the bandwidth hogs.
The bandwidth hogs, yes, there you go. So now people will be a lot more free to use their devices the same way they do on the ground without some of those restrictions. So the capacity of having 3 times the capacity in the air will now open that up, and it'll be a lot easier for people to use the system in the same way as they do on the ground, which is very imperative for user behavior pattern issues.
For the average operator, what kind of investment from a standpoint of resources, aircraft downtime, install, and then operating is required in order to be up to speed with you all now?
Yeah, well, we're not the experts in installing it. That's
Right.
why we love this AEA show, because here is where we meet with our...
Please install me.
Well, these are the experts that are
Right.
here. That's why we're meeting with them. The dealers that we've had for many years. Typically what I've seen, whether you're talking about a large MRO or a smaller MRO, typically we see that the downtime to install one of our systems is put in conjunction with a major mod. And so typically the aircraft are down about 2 weeks, but that has to do with the overall installation time of the maintenance that they're doing in addition to our particular thing. And it's usually hovers in the area a little over $100,000 equipment and installation, maybe 130, 150, depending on the aircraft and the complexity of what they're installing on and so forth. But very different from what we've seen in the past with some of the satellite-based systems that were upwards in the many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So not only is
an incredible downtime for the aircraft too.
Exactly.
Back in the day.
Yeah. And the operational cost it's much better as well. So, yeah.
So where do you take this from here?
Well,
I mean, I've watched this growth cycle of yours. You just have not left anything alone for very long. So I've got to ask, even with a fresh certification, days old, ink still wet, where do you go?
Well, we're already working on our next generation system. We're very excited about it. The next transition, our next generation system, which we have not named yet, so right now it's still the next generation system. We anticipate going live sometime in 2018. And what's unique about this system is that we are going to basically duplicate the same functionality you currently have with your smartphones. You'll notice as you're roaming around driving that you'll see your service go from an LTE to a 4G network bounce back and forth. So what GoGo is going to do is that we're going to deploy a new network piggybacking on our existing ground-based infrastructure that will have ranges up to about 100 megabits per second. And what we're going to use is we're going to use our existing air-to-ground network, the 4G ATG system that we just certified, as a dual network. So as you're flying along the country, the system will automatically connect to the fastest pipe available. And so that's how we are going to try to stay ahead of the demand curve of user base. We feel that having up to technology of 100 megabits guaranteed and backed up by our licensed spectrum will be a very fail-safe way of providing good coverage for the customers that will continue to stay in pace with the demands of the personal devices and how people are using social media now with so much imagery.
Well, GoGo has done some amazing work in this area. You've basically built a de facto standard around yourself. And of course, watching the high-end commercial side now with an increasing number of, GoGo. It's certainly hard to ignore the fact that you've been a hard charger in this area. But for those out there operating in the GA and BizAv world who may not be that familiar with GoGo, let me ask you the ultimate question. Why GoGo?
Well, so there's a couple different things. It depends on your market segment. I'm going to go back first to your question about, or your comment about the airline world. So our current air-to-ground network supports both the 4,000 plus installations that we have on business corporate aircraft and a little over 3,000 on the airline side of the world. And what we've seen over time is that the demand for the airlines, because of the quantity of passengers and the quantity of aircraft, is much greater. And
especially that bandwidth hog who's running the media company in 3C. Yeah.
There you go. So one of the things
I've got my iPad, I've got my laptop, I've got my iPhone. I'm just going to suck it down. That's all there is to it. Bandwidth.
Well, I'm happy to say that now on those commercial aircraft, you'll be able to do that without limitations and without affecting the overall bandwidth capabilities for our business aviation customers. And the reason for that is because we're transitioning all of our airline partners over from the air-to-ground system over to our new satellite-based system called 2KU, which we have over 1,500 aircraft committed as backlog, and a few hundred of those on the KU net, or 100 now, that are flying. And as every aircraft from the airline world transitions from an air-to-ground based network to the satellite-based network, that's extra capacity that we'll get to use in the most congested corridors. So from that standpoint, we will start to encourage people with an air-to-ground system that can do 100 megabits and a satellite-based system that is already doing 100 megabits to do exactly what you said. Let that person in 5C do all the video they want. We'll be perfectly comfortable with that. So we're very happy about that. But why GoGo, you asked? It's because of that. We invest millions of dollars every year on R&D, on our core technologies and on crucial technologies like antenna, Wi-Fi networks. It's not just the air-to-ground link that you need. You need to have good antenna technology, you need to have good in-cabin Wi-Fi, and with streaming media and multiple people streaming, the congestion points can be the actual in-cabin network, not the air-to-ground or the satellite-based network. So GoGo is the only company, and I think the leading company at least, that invests significant amount of resource staying ahead of the demand. We were the first ones to come up with an air-to-ground technology. We were the first ones to come up with a text and talk application so that people can use their own phone instead of some foreign dialing sequence over a satellite. So we understand what it is to manage voice, data, and entertainment in a cabin. So that's why GoGo.
Outstanding. How do you, or how problematic at this point in regards to satellite systems are the usual latency issues with satellite communication?
So that will continue to be an issue. That's just a matter of physics. When you have a satellite at 22,000 feet in the air, it takes a while for it to get there and back. There are things that we do from a technology standpoint to minimize the inconvenience to the passenger, caching and other tricks of the trade, if you will, some of the magic behind the curtain that we do to minimize it. But at the end of the day, it's getting to the point where both with a combination of the techniques that we use to minimize that inconvenience and the use of the customers, the benefits outweigh it, and so it really is not an issue anymore. But there will always be a difference between a low Earth orbit satellite or an air-to-ground system versus a GEO. I mean, that's just part of the nature of the physics.
And those systems are evolving by the day.
Yes, and so we see things on the horizon that may really limit that. We're excited to see some of the new technology, satellite technology, some of the KU networks that are talking about low Earth orbiting, because those will minimize that to a greater degree.
Especially with all the launch systems that are only too happy to put you anywhere you need to be.
Yes.
First thing they got to do though is get rid of all that clutter. It's going to be an interesting issue as we get further and further into LEO satellite systems. It's going to be interesting. I am a mid-level bizjet operator. Don't have a decent solution for the boss to be able to talk to the office to find out what's going on, to make sure that everything's ahead. I give you a call. What questions do I need to ask in order to estimate my needs, to understand what it's going to take to make the switch, and how will this change my operating my aircraft?
Absolutely. So some of the questions we'll ask is how many hours you fly, where do you fly, and the purpose of your flights. And that'll help us to kind of guide you towards a system. The way it will, having connectivity on your aircraft, the first evolution basically is a level of productivity for the passengers in the back. But now we're evolving to a new state of connectivity. Now we're not just talking about connecting the passengers, but we're talking about connecting the crews. And some of the things that you'll see with some of our features and applications that we're now enabling third-party people, partners if you will, to provide enhanced information for the crews to increase efficiency of operation, which either reduces cost or increases the overall safety and awareness of what's going on, not from a decision standpoint, but from an information standpoint as advisory for the crews. That's the second part, and that is already going, and that evolution really started with EFBs. And what GoGo brings to that is now we're actually connecting those EFBs so that pilots not only have a good user interface and don't have to carry that bag of jet charts behind them, but now they have real-time information that they can communicate with their dispatchers on the ground and make intelligent decisions with relevant, up-to-date information that they've never had. The last part of that is now not just connecting, so we connected the passengers, now we're connecting the crews for operational efficiency, now we're talking about connecting the aircraft, machine-to-machine type operations that will enable flight departments and third-party operators or service providers to provide a much greater level of automation and that will really change aviation. Everything from automating, potentially, talking about things that still need to be certified and done, but there are agencies or services right now that manage all your logbooks for you. Well, we know exactly when the aircraft takes off.
Where were they 10 years ago?
You have, right now, one of the biggest problems that we have in aviation from an efficiency standpoint is mandated maintenance based on hours and cycles and dates. And with connectivity and intelligence on the aircraft, we can now start providing engine manufacturers and airframe manufacturers with data real time so that they can go on a on-condition type need. And I think that will be the next real big evolution that connectivity brings, and that's what we're excited about. There's a lot to do.
The obvious follow-on to that then is, for the operators looking for this kind of capability, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, we are very active. You can see we have a website. The best way is probably just to go to their current dealer or to their OEM. We have line fit agreements with all of the aircraft OEMs, and we have a very, very extensive dealer network. And if all else fails, please go to gogobusinessaviation.com, and we're there for you.
Outstanding. Well, Sergey, I really appreciate your time. Like I said, I've had a wonderful time watching you throughout the years. When this was first brought up and discussed some years ago, and I remember some of the original discussions and the plans, and let's face it, it was a real interesting, arduous, rocky process in the beginning, like all innovations and all, well, more important, truly disruptive innovation is.
Yeah.
So it's been fun to watch not only the process, but to see it succeed, and not only that, see it innovate further. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Alrighty, folks, we've got a lot more on tap for the rest of the 3-hour coverage today, day 3 of AEA 2017. We'll be back in just a few moments. We are live from the 2017 AEA Convention and Trade Show at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, Swifto, Changeo, and it is definitely data communications and all kinds of aircraft communications day. I am pleased to be here with Hamish Neal from Flight Cell. It's going to be one of those days, and
That's
I've got 3 hours of this. Hamish, there's so much competition within the communications market. I was telling one of your competitors a little while ago that ultimately what it comes down to is you would think that getting the airplane from place to place was enough, but no, when you're in the airplane, you got to know what's happening at destination. You got to keep up with the office. The airplane has to communicate. There's just so many different ways now where we've got to stay connected, got to communicate, and just stay alive and in business. So tell me what Flight Cell is and what it's doing today to help in that regard.
Okay, so our product is, as you've kind of mentioned some of the elements, which is we're very much a satellite, but also cellular data, voice and tracking system. So we're an all-in-one system. And this is the box here that we're talking about. And so we're providing all of that communication, very much the human interface side of things. So it's very much talking, as well as providing information about what's happening on the aircraft and getting information off the aircraft if it's important. I guess the differentiator between us and I guess you could call them competitors, and I'll say why I say I guess because we also work with a lot of our competitors. The differentiator is very much in the size of the equipment, the fact that it's built to a military specification, so we're quite big in the military market, and as well it's very, very easy to install because it's a single box solution. So that kind of gives you a bit of a snapshot of what the product's all about.
How did you arrive at this market? Everybody has their background story, why they decided that there was a need, why they thought they were qualified to fill it, and what's the process been like?
Well, we're a company where we've been integrating cellular communications onto aircraft for 18 years now. So we started off with a portable device called Flight Cell Pro, and we sold this into the US military in quite significant numbers. And it wasn't actually for cellular that they purchased it, it was to integrate Iridium satellite phones onto the aircraft. But cell phones were also part of the market because the founder of the company was using it himself as a helicopter pilot so that he could basically run 2 jobs at once. And this was an ideal solution for him. He could take phone calls whilst he was flying the plane. And we moved on from there when a significant opportunity arose within the US military again, and they wanted our portable device to be integrated into an installed unit on the panel. So we invented, I guess, our panel-mounted version of exactly the same thing. They then started cherry-picking us a little bit in terms of, well, we need this also for tracking, we'd like to get information off the aircraft.
Boy, aren't customers annoying when they keep asking for more and more and more?
Exactly. And we finally said, okay, enough. We didn't quite say that, but enough is enough. Now, get on with it, let's get going. And they never bought from us because their program changed, as happens with a lot of these things. But at the same time, another customer with a significant fleet of tankers came and bought 50 units of us, and we were away. So that was back in 2004, and we have been integrating satellite and more lately cellular into aircraft ever since through an installed device such as this.
Outstanding. Talk to me a little bit about some of your quote-unquote average customers. Who are they? How do they utilize it? And more important, how are they growing with Flight Cell?
Okay, so we provide, I guess, what some equipment can achieve in corporate jets, but we're very much the smaller, slightly lower level. So anywhere from light jet through to turboprop fixed wing, and particularly helicopters is where our market niche is. And we very much focus on I guess, government utilities, and we talk about the likes of law enforcement, search and rescue, air medical, the fire service, those sorts of aircraft where they have connected equipment and they would like to get information off the aircraft, also a very big part of our business. Anything with a helicopter, obviously, there's a big advantage here because of the weight of the unit, but also the convenience of having a display it's intuitive, so it's like a telephone in terms of how to use it, but it's menu driven as well, so there are a number of utilities inside the box that allow you to access more and more as we go on. Now I just want to talk a little bit about how this product's been built, and I don't know if you can see this, but if we look into the box, you'll see that it is it's modular. Now a modular system means that we can evolve the product. We've future-proofed it to a certain extent because we've got a card-based system. This means that this box can contain a satellite phone, a cell phone, or 2 satellite phones, or 2 cell phones, or any number of different cards based upon the utility that's required by the customer. And that could include extra sensor inputs, that can include different types of connectivity like ARINC 429. Those sorts of things are all enabled within this product to give it versatility. In the end, it means we've got probably 40 plus different configurations of this product as a result. So we can therefore tailor it to the needs of those quite specific industries and markets. So those markets are growing, and our penetration into those markets is growing as they see the benefits of a product such as this.
Well, one of the other nice things about modularity is it certainly makes diagnostics, replacement, repair a whole lot easier, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that is another good thing about repair is that if, and we on the odd occasion do need to repair the product, and that may be due to sometimes a faceplate, or we do have software issues, whatever, you can flip it out with 4 Zeus screws and send it off. There's nothing in the avionics bay, it's all in the control head.
Now you're working with a number of different technologies. I see obviously Iridium being part of this. Iridium is in the process of making some really big upgrades over the coming years, as long as they can still get Elon to launch on time and so forth.
Yeah, exactly.
What will the Iridium upgrades do to your capabilities?
Well, I guess firstly we'll talk about their latest upgrade that's actually occurred, which is that they've launched a system called Iridium Push-to-Talk. And we were the first off the block because of this ability, and I talked about it before, we're a software-driven and modular product. We've been able to incorporate Iridium Push-to-Talk into this module as well. So it means you can broadcast one-to-many, and that isn't just aircraft to aircraft, it's aircraft to base station and aircraft to a 9575 phone. So you now have ground crew, you have possibly troops or search and rescue staff, and the airborne assets all being able to communicate with each other. Now that technology that they've developed is going to flow through to Iridium Next, and Iridium Next in itself will provide us access to a greater data speed than we're currently getting now. So if you look at Iridium's current capability, it's 2.4 kilobits per second. Very narrow band data flow rate. Now when Iridium come out with their what's called the SFX, then we'll have access to up to 88 megabytes per second, 88 kilobytes per second, which is quite significant. It allows quite a good ability to send a lot of this onboard data that we're talking about connecting with these markets at a greater rate and more information with that. The question we have is, what is that modem going to look like? Is it something that's going to go inside the box or outside the box? The great news for us is it doesn't really matter because we can integrate external modems as well as internal modems. So we're in a very good position to take advantage of anything if it is deemed necessary by our customers. We're always going to ask them first.
Outstanding. Do you have any interesting user stories to relate? Who out there utilizing your product has inspired you, or for that matter, given you a reason to start innovating once again?
Well, I'd have to say that all of our developments are based on users and customer needs. So I'll give you an example. We have customers in Europe at the moment who are wanting to run off a different frequency of cellular network that is not available on the 4G card, the 4G LTE card that we have at the moment. So given that, we can demonstrate that we can actually innovate as required, and we will be developing this particular technology for that particular customer group. And we get a lot of those requests all the time. We've had fire customers who want to know, for example, where do we drop the fire bucket, where do we pick up the water, how much retardant did we add, a whole pile of different pieces of information that they'd like to get off the aircraft. Now we have been able to do that by the creation of applications, software applications that are then able to be used on off the aircraft. So I wouldn't say there's one specific case rather than specific markets that have come to us, and we've heard repeated requests of what we'd like to be able to do with the equipment, and we've developed applications for it. On the other side, we have a lot of business-to-business applications as well, because we have a conduit here or a pipe to get information off the aircraft onto the ground. And on the 4G and LTE network, with a lot of these customer groups that I mentioned before, they are generally in range of 4G and LTE.
Okay.
And so they now have an internet connection via an Ethernet cable, so they can connect their equipment and get their information off the aircraft. So we're forming a lot of partnerships with a lot of companies so that they can fulfill that requirement without having to develop it themselves.
What's the future for this technology in light of everything else that's going on right now? How secure do you feel in this market?
I don't think we'd ever feel secure. I think that would be a mistake.
Okay, sorry about that.
I think that the complacency is our biggest enemy, and I think where we see the future going is where the future is. It depends on the satellite networks. It depends on what's happening on the ground. But what we are saying with this product is that with a modular capability such as this, is that we're going to be able to adapt very rapidly and meet a lot of those changes. So we just have to keep abreast of what's going on, and when we see the changes taking place, we can respond. At the same time, I think we are creating change as well.
Okay.
And a good example of that is I talked about the cellular modem that's in here at the moment. Well, you've got this opportunity with tracking. You see, this is a tracking product, and we send our tracking data to multiple tracking service providers. We're unlocked, and that's unusual in this industry. It's like when you go to I guess an Apple store and you buy an iPhone, it's unlocked. But if you go and buy the same phone from a phone company, it's locked. Right. Well, you're buying this as an unlocked device, and you can go to any satellite service provider, Iridium satellite service provider, and any cellular service provider, so it's providing that they've got 4G and LTE,
right,
and you can put the SIM cards in and you're away. In addition to that, you've also got the mapping service provider, and we have 11 different mapping service provider partners, and that's growing, so that the information that's sent from this...
An awful lot of backup for you and a lot of security, doesn't it?
And it also, for the customer...
Very smart.
And great for the customer, because now they can say, well, actually, we have just bought a whole pile of aircraft, and they're being followed on this map. We would like to integrate our DZM system with that map. We can do that now. Now, the key thing is that we've developed, along with this, a thing called IP tracking. So what that means is that off the cell modem, we are sending positions over direct IP. So it's like it's an internet connection. We're just streaming pieces of data down the pipe, and it's going to any of those service providers, provided they are able to unbundle that. This has brought the price of satellite tracking when they're in 4G range right down. So now we're saving money for the customer, which is great.
Okay, well, I'm a mid-level turboprop operator. I've been ignoring communications, but I know I've been ignoring it for way too long. How do I get the information I need? If I'm coming to you, what's the advice that you give me in how to sum up the needs that I have, plan for an install, and get everything running to a point where I now have the versatility I need when I'm traveling?
So I think first of all we need to talk. Because what we will generally do is provide or ask for a list of your specific needs. And at the same time, we like to understand the particular industry that you're in, because of our experience of the different industries and who we've dealt with in the past. If you're air medical, for example, and you're on a fixed wing, we would say, well, you need this control head and you need the DZM, but you're probably likely to need a remote head as well on the back.
Okay.
Because that's going to provide your crew with access to dialing, making calls, all those sorts of things that a crew would need to do if the status of the patient changes. But if you're more of a passenger situation, then you might want a remote handset in the back. So you can do a privacy phone call off a handset out of the back. You might want 2 iridium transceivers. You might not want cellular on a fixed wing. Cellular and fixed wing is going to be less useful if it's flying at high altitudes over great distances than the helicopter market who are based in the cities and those sorts of things. So really it is a conversation with us, all with our agents and distributors. So in North America it's Dallas Avionics, for example. Then you would talk to them and they would walk you through a similar process. So it's a conversation to make sure that we're meeting your needs up front. But the other thing is that if you want to start low and slow, you can start with just straight iridium and then think to yourself, well, okay, maybe cellular would have been a better example, or maybe I needed night vision to a higher level than we've got here, which we can supply as well. But all of those things are retrofittable. So you haven't made any mistakes by buying a specific unit. We can change the configuration of the product based on future needs.
Outstanding. Alrighty, sir. For those out there that are interested in your product, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, we have our website, www.flightcell.com, and all of our contact details are in there, or you can talk to our North American distributors, Dallas Avionics.
Very good. Hamish, I appreciate your time. It's certainly been fun getting caught up. I've been talking to some of your people over the last few months about what you've been doing and then leading up to your most recent announcements and all, and we look forward to seeing you here next year and in succeeding years and what you develop out of all this technology. We thank you much, sir.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim.
Alrighty, folks. We are coming up on a break, or even better, we're coming up on the next part of our interview with Paula Dirks, president of AEA. 2 afternoons ago, I spent some time with Paula and went over everything known to God in avionics, and as usual, Paula delivered. Paula is just a phenomenally interesting person to speak to, very much in command of what is not only happening now, but is likely to happen in the world of avionics, whether it's ADS-B 2020 or scholarships or how we're going to be training the next generation. All that is discussed. So if you give us a few moments, we will have that for you very shortly. We are live from the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. And at this stage of the game, I certainly have appreciated all the folks that have been emailing and letting us know how much they've been enjoying the live programming. We genuinely enjoy presenting it to you. We just wish we could get a little bit more sleep here in New Orleans. That's another story entirely. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a few moments. And we're going next to our interview with Paula Dirks, president of AEA. You have kind of a double backbone to this industry. There's the individual shops, and then there's the individual technicians. You are officially the chief doctor for AEA. What's the health like on both right now?
Well, since we don't really ever represent individual technicians or A&P mechanics. We represent FAA or appropriate government certified repair stations that employ avionics technicians. AEA prides itself on making sure those avionics technicians have the opportunity to take part in all kinds of technical training on either new avionics equipment, existing avionics equipment, learning how to troubleshoot and maintain and integrate those systems into the cockpit with other instruments in avionics. So the health of the avionics technician is very good if they choose to take advantage of all the training opportunities we offer to them. We can always use more trained avionics technicians in our industry. I think we're seeing that with the ADS-B demand. Shops are, being very creative nowadays, trying to find qualified and experienced avionics technicians, and if they can't find them, they are starting to be creative and mentor students who are enrolled in various avionics programs, or even a student that has a mechanical aptitude and is interested in a job in the aviation industry, especially in the maintenance and repair industry. They're raising their own, if you will, and because if you cannot find these qualified and educated avionics technicians that are in great demand, then you have to resort to those type of means of training them and on-the-job training, apprentice to journeyman, if you will.
Is there sufficient outreach and diversity among the AEA community, both for women and people of color?
There's probably not enough, and there probably should be a lot more than there is currently being done. It is something, obviously, myself as a woman is very sensitive to. I would love to see more females out in the audiences when I am on speaking engagements or when we're at AEA Connect meetings or the annual convention and trade show. Women are in the headlines a lot lately. Women's International Day, and empower women. I say we've been empowered a long time. It hasn't just come about in the last few months or the last couple of years, but we ourselves are the ones that sometimes have to pull our own selves up by the bootstraps and say, I am interested in a science career. I'm interested in an aviation maintenance career. How do I go about it? And that's where AEA and Women in Aviation, AEA supports them through scholarships for women seeking careers in the maintenance community. And then we have our own educational foundation as well that we promote and seek to give scholarships, award scholarships to both men and women seeking careers in the industry. But could there be more done? Absolutely. Absolutely, for both women and those people of color. Bring them in. Let's promote these highly skilled, really wonderful careers in, of course, I'm partial, but in a very wonderful industry.
How do you see the overall regulatory situation? Is it improving? Is it about the same? Is it getting worse? And where does it most need an effort?
The age-old problem, and especially with AEA celebrating our 60 years this year, we've spent a lot of time over the past several months looking back at our history files of the association and minutes of some of our board meetings, and discouragingly enough, some of the same topics in regards to regulators and regulations and rulemaking and so forth have not changed in the last 60 years. Maybe I shouldn't say they haven't changed, but some of the faces have changed, but some of the problems still exist. Probably the number one problem at the end of the day is the interpretation of the written regulation. All of us are going to interpret the written word a little bit differently, and to my knowledge, there hasn't been a solution, a really good solution to how a human mind interprets the written word. So we may have a disagreement on a simple sentence. So that has not changed a lot. What I do see changing, and I mentioned a little earlier, is that I do see a culture change within the FAA. They realize they do not have the resources they need and at times the manpower they need to regulate and oversee this entire industry. And so they are looking more for industry through designees, through DERs, if you will, to help them, industry professionals that are designated by the FAA or other EASA, Transport Canada, name the regulatory agency, and they're also doing the same thing. They're relying more on industry expertise and input to help, again, create a safe environment for all of us in all segments of aviation.
What do you want the general aviation and business aviation, even to a certain extent the sport aviation community, to know about the avionics industry as it stands right now?
The avionics industry is made up of very passionate, smart people, very creative people. I mentioned this morning in our opening address, in 60 years, you think of the icons that have been in this industry: Art Collins of Collins Avionics, now Rockwell Collins, Ed King of King Radio, and now Bendix King and Honeywell, Gary Burrell, the GAR in Garmin. These brilliant, genius individuals who bring these products to market that have changed aviation as we know it over the years. And I'm singling out people, but there are thousands of those people in this industry, hardworking people that at the end of the day, yes, we're all trying to make a living in the industry, but at the end of the day, it's our love and our passion of aviation and producing the safest product that we possibly can to make flying enjoyable and profitable for everyone.
I'm sure that on the back of the door in your office there's a dartboard. Middle of the dartboard, what is your target for the rest of 17 and into 18 for AEA? What's public enemy number one?
Public enemy number one is probably privatizing ATC. So we will be laser focused on FAA reoff. The positive is we really want to be focused on FAA reoff. The FAA needs a reauthorization bill. We do not need another extension. So we would ask Congress to realize how hard it is for FAA to really operate without a budget and know where to put money and what airport improvement programs can be done now. When you're operating on an extension, it's very hard to run a company. And the FAA is a company. They're a business. They're an organization. So we will be pushing hard for an actual bill to be passed. Hopefully it can be. That is one major issue, privatization, as I mentioned, and just keeping ADS-B installs chugging along and trying to spread the word that as the clock ticks, so does the install calendar fill up as well. So, I cannot express enough to your subscribers to continue to look at their preferred avionics shop and make sure they have an install date in mind. And let's get equipped and let's move on. There's so many opportunities beyond 2020. We're also laser focused on the ADS-B mandate. While there's so many other exciting, great avionics products out there that's going to take us beyond that mandate.
Beyond it.
Absolutely.
For what it's worth, we appreciate what AEA is doing. We appreciate the direction you've taken and how effective your organization has been.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate the relationship as well. It has been a long-standing, healthy relationship. We appreciate your coverage and your support of the association and all of our associate members. And here's to another 10 years, if not another 60 years.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 60th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Southeast Aerospace teamed up with Garmin International, Gables Engineering, and Peregrine Avionics to bring the most cost-effective and flexible ADS-B solution to the business aviation community. Our Part 25 AML STC is available for non-TCAS 2 Beechjet, Citation, Hawker, Learjet, and Falcon Jet. Visit seaerospace.com for more details.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality, because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
The 2-inch MD93 digital clock and USB charger features intuitive operation with 4 modes: local time, universal time, flight timer, and stopwatch. The dual USB charging port supplies 2.1 amps of power per port to personal electronic devices with a USB interface. Learn more at mcico.com.
Build and fly with the most exciting line of kit aircraft on the market, the Sonex Aircraft B models. The B models offer more room and comfort, more fuel, more panel space, more engine choices, and the same great Sonex Aircraft flight characteristics. Learn more at sonexaircraft.com.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Freeflight Systems is expanding its business into the Part 25 aviation industry through new avionics shop dealers, manufacturer partnerships, and STC programs. With a focus on the next-gen airspace and remote-mounted sensor systems, Freeflight Systems will continue to be a leader in the next-gen airspace. Visit freeflightsystems.com for details.
Have you ever wanted big glass in your cockpit but didn't have the space? Now with Avidyne's IFD series touchscreen GPS navigators and our new IFD 100 iPad app, having big glass in your cockpit is finally within reach.
And welcome back to the 60th Annual AEA Convention here in New Orleans, Louisiana. Jim Campbell is off somewhere, probably having lunch. I'm Tom Patton, and thanks for being with us this afternoon. Happy to have you along. Joining me right now is Andy Davis from Trig Avionics. And Andy, it's always a pleasure to see you, and you've always got good stuff to talk about. But I want to start kind of at the 30,000 foot level, because we're talking about getting people to get ADS-B in their airplanes, and it's not not maybe going quite as quickly as some in at least official Washington might hope.
Yeah, it's not going too badly though. I mean, you mentioned 30,000 feet. There's about 31,000 airplanes equipped in the national airspace, which is depends how you count the stats as to what proportion of the people that is. There are different numbers of how many airplanes need to be equipped. Some people say 160,000 total, but there's quite a lot of people that would be exempt for one reason or another. So maybe it's going to be 120, 130,000. There's about 31,000 out there at the moment, and new installs are going in at more than 1,000 a month. So it's a pretty good rate. In fact, we did the simple calculation the other day, and if it keeps going at the current rate and nothing changes, it'll be about 70,000 airplanes equipped by the deadline. That's not perhaps the number that the FAA wanted to hear, but it's a good chunk of the fleet.
But what happens then to those pilots who aren't equipped by the deadline?
Well, not everybody needs to be equipped, depending on where your operation is based and where you're flying. If you're out in the Midwest, out somewhere away from the Class B airspace, where there's plenty of flying to be done outside at any mandate airspace, because it's an airspace rule. 91.225 is all about the airspace where you have to carry the equipment, not just saying everybody has to have it. So if you're out there, you can carry on your flying without ever having to equip with ADS-B. One of the things is, actually, people don't really know what the demographic is, if you like, as to where everybody is. So we're not quite sure how many people really need to do the installation.
Well, that is, of course, where I learned to fly as well. So, yes, there's a lot of uncontrolled airspace out in the heartland of this country. But what about in the European market? Because I know that you deal with that as well. Is there that kind of uncontrolled airspace where people can fly? Absolutely. And I know they've got a different standard, but they've also have an equipage deadline.
That's correct. Although the equipage mandate in Europe is quite different. The technical standards are aligned. So EASA and the FAA have worked together. So the new technical standard for ADS-B in Europe is pretty much completely aligned with what's required over here. What's different is the airspace where you need the equipment. For normal, particularly VFR pilots, the amount of sky where you are going to need equipage is much smaller than it is over here. Here there is the Mode C veils, there is anything above 10,000 feet. In Europe it's much more constrained to Class A airspace, and certain zones around particular airports are much more narrowly defined. So although we expect air carriers and some of the higher end bizjets, IFR guys to need the equipment, there's a lot less demand at the lower end for the piston singles and twins.
Something that I've been talking about with several of the avionics guys that have come over and talked with us today is how your customers are approaching you now. Because at one point it was, they were, I'm sure, coming to your booth and others and saying, what do I need? And now I'm hearing that people are coming and saying, here's what I want, do you have that? Are you finding that to be the case as well?
Sometimes, yes. There are people who have a particular view as to what they want. Sometimes that's it's a good view, and sometimes it's gleaned from snippets of information, and they still need steered in the right direction as to what they should really be doing. What you actually need to comply is pretty straightforward. You just need an ADS-B out solution. What some people are choosing to do is either rearrange their panel for completely unrelated issues. Some people are saying, well, if my shop's in having worked on, maybe I'll get some glass, maybe I'll get a PFD installed. But one thing that it is forcing is GPS equipage. In order to comply with the full mandate, you do need to have some kind of WAS GPS receiver on board. Now, a lot of guys are lucky they've already got one. If you have and to take the obvious example, a Garmin 430, something like that, if you have the WAS version of that, that is a competent navigator and also counts as an ADS-B position source. So if you already have that, you already have a good chunk of the solution on your airplane. You now need something to transmit the ADS-B out, which typically is going to be an upgrade to your transponder. Wire the two together, a couple of other things you need to sort out, some testing, and that's a solution. So that can be really quite effective and done. If, however, you don't have anything in your panel already, you have no navigator, the question we ask people is, well, maybe now's the time. Have you thought about getting one? Because if you imagined you might be going to buy a navigator for your airplane sometime in the next 2 or 3 years, then the ADS-B mandate really is going to be the thing that triggers that. So again, people are doing quite significant upgrades that are not really related to just the ADS-B solution.
Right. Now, one of the things, go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was going to say, but if you still don't, or if you have something that isn't ADS-B capable, but you like it, it's an existing, I don't know, KLN 94 navigator, something like that. It's wired into your panel, into your autopilot, into your HSI, and you like it and you know how to work it. You know, some people say, I don't want to upgrade that. And so their third option is put some kind of remote mount separate WAS navigator.
Now, Trig is well known for small, lightweight instruments that are all certified and all good to go, and yet you're seeing a lot of interest from the really light airplane market, and what you've brought today and what you've introduced here at AEA is for almost largely for the sailplane market. So let's talk about your new box here a little bit,
let me do that. I mean, so we've had this product for a while, which is a full-featured WAS GPS position source, which is completely compliant with the mandate. But there are a whole lot of people out there, and back to the statistics almost of who's going to equip, who are exempt for one reason or another. You can be exempt because you're in a sailplane, as you mentioned. They were exempt from the transponder rules, and they're exempt in much the same way from the ADS-B requirement. Balloons, same argument. And that's because they don't have the electrical system to support it. In fact, any aircraft with no electrical system is exempt from the ADS-B mandate. The other guy who's exempt, of course, is the guy who's away from the airspace completely. If you're out in Montana or whatever, there's nothing that is going to force you to do the upgrade. And yet, part of that community is looking to voluntarily equip. The sailplane guys in particular spoke many years ago to the FAA, in fact, and said, well, how can we participate? And the reason for that is, although they're exempt, they also have a sometimes even justified paranoia of being hit by somebody in a powered airplane because they behave differently, they dawdle, they're thermaling, they're hard to spot sometimes, and they like to think that they can have a conspicuity solution that lets them be seen. A full ADS-B out solution is expensive for them. May even be prohibitively expensive.
And they may not have the panel space for it.
And they may not have the panel space or the electricity to support it. But quite a lot of them are equipping with transponders and want to participate in the ADS-B solution. So the FAA worked with these guys and with industry and came up with a TSO called TSO C199, which is basically ADS-B for the less fully equipped. They deliberately didn't call it the same thing. They called it Traffic Awareness Beacon System. But underlying it is exactly the same ADS-B technology that is required for the 2020 mandate. But the alleviation to try and reduce the cost is it allows some slightly simpler certification. It's still a certified solution, so we're still talking about a TSO and a TSO transponder product, but it lets them get in at a slightly lower entry level. And we worked on that and came up with this product, which is our TN72 TABS GPS receiver. So very much like the original product that we had that gives you the full capability, it includes a full WAS GPS receiver. Connect that to your existing Trig transponder, or new Trig transponder. Sorry, had to get that one in.
Oh no, of course, and we have one here.
And here's an example of the control panel. But connect the TN72 to that transponder, and you can participate in the ADS-B out environment. Because it is a certified product, it actually lets the transponder set what is called the integrity values. So it sets a non-zero integrity level for the data. It sets a design assurance level. And that's important because that is required for any of the standards compliant traffic receivers to see you. If you look at some of the kind of equipment that's fitted to the light aircraft that the gliders want to be seen by, if it's TSO'd, then the regulations require it to discard low integrity data. And so, although there are solutions out there that have experimented with that, they don't show up on the simple traffic receivers. So put that into your airplane, and now you can be seen by the other traffic. Also importantly, it turns on the ground network. Okay. So we all know that one of the benefits of ADS-B here in the US is that you get uplinked traffic and other data from the ground network. But that uplinked data is only made available to participating aircraft. It's not just broadcast all the time to all of the sky just in case somebody's passing by. You have to turn it on by sending the right ADS-B messages. With one of these things connected to your transponder, you can turn on that traffic, and you get to see, so if you have a traffic receiver on board, you can see all the other participating traffic as well. And so that's a great safety benefit for someone that can therefore drive that what I'll call optional equipage. The ADS-B network does cover the whole of the continental US, even though the areas of concentrated Class B and mandate airspace are more focused. Even out in the places where you're hundreds of miles away, there is still ADS-B coverage, there's still ADS-B uplink, and therefore that gives a real benefit for someone if they put something like that in their aircraft.
When we talk about ADS-B and the way that it allows the airplane and the electronics to communicate with things like iPads and smartphones and things of that nature, and I know there's a lot of that going on in that whole connected cockpit scenario. Yep. Where do we go? And we're going to talk blue sky here a little bit, Andy, because it's really I enjoy the opportunity to kind of sit with you guys and look out into the future. But where do we get to a point where the boxes talk to one another in the individual airplanes, where the airplanes basically talk to one another?
Well, that's already happening at the very high end. It's not happening in GA, but it's happening in the Part 121 stuff. A couple of the ADS-B applications. So ADS-B is a technology, and then they put applications on top of that. One of the applications that GA pilots are aware of is basic situational awareness, visual acquisition, helping you see the other guy. So you have a display, as you say, and you say, yep, there's the traffic over there. But there are other things that are being worked on. One very good example is what's called in-trail procedures. So for this, you have to think of airliners crossing the North Atlantic. One thing that people forget, because we're in such a connected world, is that there is a portion of every flight between Europe and the US where the airliner is out of contact with ground radar, because there's no ground, and so there's no ground radar system. And so for all time, the North Atlantic tracks, you are out of surveillance from ATC. So ATC can't give you a clearance to climb, descend through somebody else's oncoming track. They now have a ADS-B application called In-Trail Procedures, ITP, which allows appropriately equipped aircraft, so this is aircraft with ADS-B out and ADS-B in, to identify the conflicting traffic, and solely on the basis of the two airplanes managing their relative position, you can do climbing and descending to change tracks in the North Atlantic without needing an ATC, a direct ATC clearance, or rather without needing the controller to actually manage you as you climb and descend. So that's one great example. There are other ones coming along where there will be ADS-B enabled applications. So and a lot of these involve panel-mounted avionics rather than an iPad, but selecting an aircraft, coupling your autopilot and saying, essentially, follow that guy. And the airplanes already have the technology to do that. UPS have been doing experiments in that area. Again, it's all in the larger air carrier type aircraft rather than the light aircraft. I see a lot of this stuff trickling down. Soon we will be able to just pick out an airplane and say, yeah, follow him, engage the autopilot, just as you can couple it to the nav or couple it to an ILS. Maybe you'll have auto follow. Just press the button, identify, yeah, follow him, go.
Well, that technology already exists in the drone world, where they have drones that will follow around and
or come back to me, or whatever,
come back or whatever. So that technology exists at that level, and then I guess at the very high level, we've got to get it into the middle range here somehow. Let's talk a little bit more about your stuff, because I know that you take a lot of pride in the fact that you are a company that offers a really cost-effective product that is a product that
somebody can put in their airplane. It saves a lot of weight. It's not a big, heavy, bulky thing, easy to install. So how are you seeing your install base at this point? Are you getting the kind of market share that you're looking for? And is that install base mostly in that light aircraft market?
Certainly, to the second one, yeah, it's all in the lighter end at the moment. We have some applications where we get up as far as, shall we say, a King Air, something like that. But the vast majority of what we're doing is in the single engine piston and in the light sport guys, and all the way down to the ultralights. You're right, the tower, a small transponder is sufficiently small and light that a flex wing ultralight can happily install the Trig transponder and can then fly in the mandate airspace. So that enables us all the way down. As to market share, well, I'm not sure.
Nobody ever has enough market share.
Yeah, I'd like more if that's okay. I'd like more people to recognise the benefits of the Trig products and choose us. But we're doing okay.
So when you talk to people, kind of give us your pitch. I mean, when you say you're considering several things, tell me why I should come to Trig and put that in my airplane.
Well, so sticking with the transponders, we have two to choose from, basically. One is our compact mount, which is the thing that has this kind of little controller. It has a remote mount gold box, not dissimilar to this one at the front, which has the brains of the transponder. And so for anybody who has a space constraint, maybe limited panel space or limited panel depth, because the controller means it takes almost no space, that is the popular choice for them. And this part is used by some of the aircraft OEMs as well. Built into anything from some of the Cub Crafters types up to Icon A5s, because it's small, compact, doesn't take up much panel space. Funnily enough, at the other end, the people who also like the very compact one are some of the vintage types, including some of the Warbirds, because you can kind of hide it. And so if you have a classic panel and it's supposed to look like something
1941.
from the 1940s, exactly. Then it kind of spoils it if you put a big transponder in the little panel. So put one of these, tuck it out of the way. Pilot can still operate it, still perfectly usable, but it doesn't interfere with the look of a vintage type. So that's the compact transponder. The other transponder, I don't have one here, but it's a conventional panel mount Mark width transponder, 6 1/4 inches wide, and it has the great feature that it is plugged straight into a legacy KT76A tray. So using the existing tray, you can put the transponder in, same wiring, same connections at the back. You obviously need to add a wire for your GPS input, and you have to do something about what's called automatic air ground determination, which is a bit of a hot button at the moment with the FAA, because too many airplanes are getting it wrong. But wire that up, and you have again, it's what I might even call an entry-level compliance solution. So you can add bells and whistles, you can add receivers and displays and things, but for the basic compliance solution, that is extremely straightforward to install. It doesn't involve a lot of rewire. And one of the big costs in ADS-B upgrades is, of course, the installation cost. It isn't completely straightforward. You do have to file all the paperwork. You do have to have the flight manual supplements. You do have to do rewiring as necessary. And some of the rewires are get you more features, but can be a really quite expensive way to go. So we're really trying to make it relatively inexpensive for people to do that upgrade.
For those shops that might be watching, what are some of the pitfalls that you're finding where they go to make these installations and they might not be doing them quite correctly?
I'm not sure that it's maybe unfair to the shops to say not doing them correctly. The one that is a hot topic at the moment is, as I mentioned, air ground determination. One thing that maybe not everybody knows is that an ADS-B installation has to know whether it's flying or on the airport surface. And that's because ADS-B transmissions are different when you're flying to when you're on the airport surface. The FAA is keen that the airport surface component of the system works because it's part of their future plans for avoiding runway incursions, management of taxiways, all that kind of stuff. And so the airplane has to know it's on the ground. For a large airliner, that's easy. They have multiple squat switches, pressure systems, all this stuff, and they know perfectly well that they're on the ground. For a light airplane, it's less obvious whether you're on the ground. And so there are a number of solutions from the vendors. We use solutions based on either air data computer, if you're fortunate to have one, or an airspeed switch, or other systems based around that. You set all of that up and you do the testing, and now you have an airplane that knows the difference between being in the air or on the ground. The only catch is that when they then get fielded and given back to the owners and they fly away, they get that wrong. One of the theories as to why they get that wrong is that in order to do the final checkout, the installer has to do a ramp check. If the airplane thinks it's on the ground, it disables a number of the transponder functions and your ramp test doesn't work. So the guys know perfectly well how that goes. They go over to the airplane, they either disable the squat switch or change the settings and turn off the air ground determination, and then they walk back out, do the ramp check, and now it passes. And then they fill in the paperwork and they go back to the office and fill in the logbooks.
And they don't turn it back on.
And then the owner shows up and says, "Is it ready? Can I have the key?" And he goes out and flies away, and it hasn't been turned back on. So if any of our dealers are watching, the number one thing after you've done the ramp check, please remember, turn back on the squat switch.
And I think that's a great place to leave it, Andy. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much. It's always interesting, and hope you're having a great show here at AEA.
Oh, so far so good.
So far, every time I've been by your booth, you've had people there, so I've been very gratified to see that for you. So thanks very much.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we are going to be talking with Mike Adams of AEA about some of the education programs and training that the association offers, so that's just straight ahead. We are live at AEA 2017, the 60th annual convention at the New Orleans Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. We'll be right back. And we're back live at AEA 2017, the 60th annual AEA convention, here at the New Orleans Convention Center in beautiful New Orleans, Louisiana, or the Big Easy, as they refer to it from time to time. Mike, thanks for joining us. With me right now is Mike Adamson. Mike is the Director of Education and Programs and such here at AEA, and I always look forward to having an opportunity to chat with you every year at the show. What is new in the world of education for folks in the avionics world and the electronics world?
Of course, we respond to the emerging technologies. I don't know if there's newness in the education world. You could argue that some of the unmanned systems are driving some of the programs, and so we would say that a lot of those technologies carry over to whether they're remotely piloted or piloted aircraft. Those are the same. Of course, that's a lot of the talk. So that's probably what's new from a focus standpoint. Technology-wise, you look on the show floor and you see something new every day, right? So there's all kinds of things going on, but I don't know what's specifically new. Of course, ADS-B is the topic. And of course, it's driving business for all of our shops and probably driving business for our education systems as well. But we're just trying to stay ahead of that.
When you talk about ADS-B, and I know that, and I was a little surprised that when the market report came out a couple of weeks ago that the number of units being sold was not where anybody expected it to be. Are you seeing that the installs are starting to catch up with where it needs to be to make that 2020 mandate?
Yeah, I think you can extrapolate what you want to out of some of those numbers, but I think you've started to see this. We're not quite hockey stick, pace yet as far as the curve goes, but you're seeing an uptick at a pace that would tell you we can get close. What happens when we get to 2020? Who knows? With mandates in the past in this industry, I do know the history is, crunch time gets pretty intense. So of course, I think you've heard the association say many times that, now's the time, right? And now is the time. And I think even if you go to do it now, you're going to experience a little backlog at some of the shops. They're booked out, and that's a great thing. But I think you're going to see that extend. So the pace, what I see from the FAA, the data that they have shows that we're there, and we need to keep that pace, so there can't be any let up. And I think that's also driving a little demand for technicians. And I think we've, as an association, at least my job and the job of our member schools is to answer that call with new techs. So,
we have heard a lot about that. Every time a Boeing or an Embraer or an Airbus comes out with their forecasts for the need for pilots and technicians.
Right.
And there appears to be, and of course, a lot of us think, well, they're talking about the engine, the A&P guys. Yeah. But I'm sure that there's also a great demand for, particularly as you look as to what comes in for shops that are going to have to start installing all of this ADS-B equipment. There's going to be a lot of demand for qualified people to do those installs and help out with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The numbers are typically what they quote the licensed and certificated mechanics. It's harder to quantify avionics, I think, because that system doesn't exist. But in a sense, it does. There are certifications for avionics technicians with the AET, the NCAT, and ASTM standards. But I don't think we're left out of the conversation. But I think it is, in a sense, maybe harder to quantify, and people focus on the AMPs, but I would argue that that's an issue for us as well. It's obviously a much smaller piece of that pie, but equally important as far as your access to the airspace, in my opinion. So,
who is your pool for someone who wants to be an avionics technician?
Technically inclined people, and I say that because I don't want to limit the crowd that may or may not think they could do this. So if you're technically oriented, you'd be surprised at what you can, the path to get to working in a repair station or manufacturer or design engineering or certification, any of the different jobs you can do. But certainly you start with the community colleges and technical schools and private institutions that are out there. That's the first place. But if you're in another industry, we'd like to have you back. There's a lot of other high-tech, fields out there that are really, kind of sucking up some of our real good talent. And I would argue that, we're more fun, maybe a little sexier. The pay's pretty good, and so I think we've got to do a good job of selling that to the folks out there who may be technically oriented and interested in airplanes as well.
You said that a lot of them had left you. Where did they go?
That's a great question, right? Because you can look at any other high-tech industry and see it in the wind farms. You can see it in medical device. You can see it in I guess you could argue unmanned aerospace, but I'd say we still have our arms around those guys as well. But specific to our shop's business, anything that's high-tech, anything that's computer-related is a potential poacher of our talent. And we have all of that. We're computer-oriented, and we are high-tech. So we've got to do a better job of selling that.
And it goes all the way into the software developers, the app developers.
Yeah.
All of that stuff can fall under this purview.
Yeah. It can be software engineering. Absolutely. That applies in aviation.
More and more.
Yeah, more than you know, right? And the folks that, you think of a typical aircraft install, we're down to software configuration. It's not just the wiring and the actual physical installation of the unit. You're talking configuration and integration issues that you see in many other fields. So,
in the unmanned sector, how are you seeing that you're talking about that falling under the purview of Aircraft Electronics Association?
Right.
Obviously, 99% of them are driven by electric motors and they contain a lot of electronics.
Right.
Is that becoming an increasing part of what you're seeing as far as your association is concerned and your membership is concerned?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got folks here with booths that are talking about that very thing, and that have networks of our member shops. That would be the folks that we're going to fix these remotely piloted or unmanned aerial systems. So yeah, I mean, the fact that they have miniaturized avionics or non-certified avionics doesn't necessarily mean they're not ours. It's the same technology, and maybe even a little more cutting edge in some senses because it's miniaturized. But that's absolutely things we have the expertise on, and should be the folks you turn to get them fixed.
On the other side of that spectrum, though, is how many of the Trigs and Garmins and those kinds of folks are now looking at the unmanned sector and saying, how can I get involved in that?
Right. You probably just had that conversation. I can't speak for them all, but you have to think that that's a focus, right? Because they're going to be in the National Airspace System. So regardless of how they're piloted, I would think that would be a way to minimize their size and weight and take some of that existing technology and put it in those smaller airframes. Keep in mind, we're not talking about the little hobby ones. We're talking 55 pounds and up to full-size aircraft. So they're absolutely the companies that should be looking at that, and I'm sure they are. I'm sure they probably won't lead on to all that they're doing, but you would have to imagine that they're very involved in that.
We are getting some hints here and there as you stop by booths and say, well, we can't talk about it yet, but.
That's right, and that tells you where the market's at, right? It's emerging, it's exponential, and I think there's everybody's trying to figure out a way to monetize it to some degree, but everybody's playing in it. Absolutely, and we will as an association as well. I imagine that we'll do the different training courses, and a lot of the things that we do will just carry over to that as well.
I know one of the things that is also under your purview is the scholarships and raising a lot of money to do those scholarships, and you've got a nice silent auction going on over there that I've got my name on a couple of things. I don't know how I'm doing right now, but
we'll hang on to them for you.
Okay, well, I'll hold you to that.
All right.
But how is your fundraising going? Are you seeing that perhaps maybe the economy is turning around a little bit that you're starting to see more people willing to make contributions and move this industry forward in that regard.
I'm glad you asked. We had our best year in training last year as an association, and you know we're a trade association that does training. We're not a training company, but we do quite a bit at our headquarters, and we had our biggest year in people and in obviously the revenue that goes with that, and that tells me that obviously our shops are hiring folks and putting them through these classes and getting them ready to do the more installation work, and with that you get more people at the show, and with that you get more people involved in the different fundraising activities. So it's all it parallels everything you're hearing. That things are turning around, business is good, shops are backlogged. So that translates into the fundraising efforts as well. You see more neat items over there, and more people wanting to be a part of that, and being a part of growing the next generation of technicians.
When you do that kind of training, is your training limited to association members, or is it a way for you to perhaps grow your membership?
It's primarily for the members, but we do open it to outside non-member companies. It's a way for them to learn about the association and join, and we open it to other individuals as well. You don't have to be one, but it was built for the members, for that supplemental training that maybe couldn't send somebody to a different school or put them back in a full semester class. They can come and get a week or so of our training. So in fact, we do an experimental aircraft installation class, and of course that's for the home builder that wants to learn how to do the wiring on their airplane. So those folks are not members of the association. So it's open to anybody, but our primary purpose was to serve our membership first.
What other kinds of classes do you offer?
We've got basic wiring and avionics installation. We go a little bit above that with avionics installation and integration. We do a pitot-static, RVSM, ADS-B implementation. We do regulatory with certified repair station training. We're doing some new classes with some of our manufacturers here and test equipment manufacturers on operating their test equipment as well. So all of that's on our website, aea.net/training. You can see the list of courses.
And how else do you get people who are members of your association or non-members and make them aware of those kinds of training programs?
This helps, certainly, and thank you. Of course, the website, we do a lot of outreach. We're at a lot of different trade shows outside of our own, and we try and share the news that way, our own publication, lots of broadcast emails, that sort of thing. Of course, all the social media outlets, we're doing that as well. So yeah, we do quite a bit of outreach, and like I said, it's obviously working. 20% up in our numbers, and I expect to do that again. So,
how have you found, and you kind of just almost answered this question, but how have you found that your association is reacting to things like social media and being able to get the word out not only about their products but the things that they're doing, using technology that was not available 5 years ago?
Right. It's changing constantly, right? I mean, the way we used to get the information and compared to today, of course, our publication is our primary focus, and that's a fantastic tool, but I think we're just adding to that, with our reach in social media and our communications effort. You kind of follow the trend and what we see others doing, but I think we've kind of taken a lead in some of those with our work on, Twitter and Facebook, and our own YouTube channel, where we repost the videos that you guys have as well. So we'll try every channel we can that we have the resources for, and I think they all just supplement our trade show, our Connect meetings, and then of course our Avionics News magazine as well.
One thing more, are you finding that the membership is growing and dynamic over the course of the past, particularly as the ADS-B mandate approaches? Are you getting more and more people interested in the association and what it can do for them?
Yeah, I'd like to say I'm seeing more young people, but I think that's just because I'm getting older. But you see fresh faces here, and so I would agree that the demographic is changing, and that's good. And we try and help that, of course, with our scholarships. We have 3 awards that we give out to attend this show, where we pay your whole way and give you a pass for the week and whatnot. So we're trying to do that, get some new faces here. Maybe those younger folks back at the shops that don't always get a chance to come to these things, trying to encourage that. Because I think, once you get them here, I think you could attest to this, you have to come back next year and every year. So we're working harder on that, and that's what some of the funds from the auction and the different things we do will fund that. Of course, we do pilot scholarships to teach them the other side of the panel, so to speak, and just enhance their professional development. So there's all kinds of things we're trying to do to get that next generation, and I think you're seeing it change a little bit. Hopefully you're seeing that. I feel like we are, so just got to keep pressing.
Well, Mike, we are out of time, but I really appreciate you coming and chatting with us. I look forward to this conversation every year, and it's always a pleasure to see you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we've got more from the 60th Annual AEA Convention here at the New Orleans Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana. We'll be right back.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 60th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Meet SAM, the new 2-inch standby attitude module from Mid-Continent Instruments and Avionics. SAM's unique 2-screen display features high-definition graphics and extra-wide viewing angles. Get to know SAM today. Visit flysam.com.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight 4-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
Freeflight Systems is expanding its business into the Part 25 aviation industry through new avionics shop dealers, manufacturer partnerships, and STC programs. With a focus on the next-gen airspace and remote-mounted sensor systems, Freeflight Systems will continue to be a leader in the next-gen airspace. Visit freeflightsystems.com for details.
Southeast Aerospace teamed up with Garmin International, Gables Engineering, and Peregrine Avionics to bring the most cost-effective and flexible ADS-B solution to the business aviation community. Our Part 25 AML STC is available for non-TCAS-2 Beechjet, Citation, Hawker, Learjet, and Falcon Jet. Visit seaerospace.com for more details.
Have you ever wanted big glass in your cockpit but didn't have the space? Now with Avidyne's IFD series touchscreen GPS navigators and our new IFD 100 iPad app, having big glass in your cockpit is finally within reach.
Redbird is quickly becoming the industry standard for flight training. Since Redbird introduced its revolutionary FMX in 2007, colleges, universities, and flight training operations around the world have integrated Redbird products into their curriculum. It's time to discover what Redbird can do for you. Join the migration.
And we're back. Welcome back to the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show here in New Orleans, Louisiana. You're watching Airborne Live, Aero TV Live. We're live no matter what. I'm Tom Patton, and we're very happy to have you with us. Nathan Hernandez is my next guest, and Nathan is with Southeast Aerospace. Nathan, thank you very much for taking some time to join us here this afternoon. Might be nice to get away from the booth for a little bit and come sit at somebody else's booth for a little while.
Good chance to sit down, not do anything.
Well, I understand that you have recently had an STC approved for a product, and I'm just going to let you talk about your product and where you're going with it.
All right, well, basically what we did You know, Garmin about a little over a year ago released the Garmin GTX 335, 345s, which of course really just kind of rattled everybody in regards to the ability to have the ADS-B in and out with a transponder that has the built-in GPS. The nice benefit to that unit when it was released, it had an ARINC 429 protocol that allowed you to control it with an old, basically transponder control head like in your business jet aircraft. So when we recognized that, we worked with Garmin and Gables to go ahead and bring a Gables control head with the Garmin transponders to your Part 25 business jets that weren't TCAS-2, didn't need a high quality TCAS-2 transponder with diversity antennas, and they didn't want to spend that $80,000, $90,000 for ADS-B upgrades. So we were able to find a solution that went ahead and brought the price down under 50, but still gave them all the same benefits of going with some of your higher end TCAS-2 capable transponders.
And what was that solution?
The GTX 345, 335R, the remote panel mounts, with the Gables 7534 control head.
Okay. And just describe the product a little bit and just tell us what it does.
Well, basically with your ADS-B mandate coming January 1 of 2020, everybody having to go ahead and get their aircraft compliant with their new transponders. So what we were able to do is aircraft, you know, for example, a Hawker 700 with a pair of TDR 90s. That customer was looking at probably going to be spending anywhere between $80,000 to $90,000 strictly to get ADS-B out. That way they'd be compliant and still able to fly. With these transponders, you didn't need to upgrade your aircraft's GPS. You didn't need to install a standalone GPS like a lot of the other solutions. You were able to put in the Garmin transponders with the built-in GPS already there. And all you had to do basically from a technician side is basically do a standard transponder install and plug an antenna up to the aircraft, hook the antenna up to the transponders. And the nice thing with it, when you look at a Hawker, your Citations, your Learjets, a lot of them already have your stack of control heads for your comms, nav, ADF, and your transponder. You're not having to do a lot of panel mod. That Gables head goes right in the existing holes. You know, we actually fabricated an adapter so that the panels that have the CTO 92s, they can go ahead and fit that in there to adapt to this control head. And it minimizes the overall work. It reduces the overall structural repairs that have to be done to the aircraft. It makes you ADS-B compliant, but at the same time, the nice benefit with the GTX 345, it also gives you ADS-B in. So a lot of these pilots today, they're flying around with their iPads, they're flying around with, you know, using ForeFlight, Garmin Pilot app, all these other apps to get, you know, their charts and some of their data. This unit goes ahead and it also outputs your ADS-B weather, your ADS-B traffic. They're getting all that on their iPad. Things even got a built-in AHAR, so they get their old flight instrumentation and they can just put that thing on their lap, put it on their yoke, and they can go to town and have a nice, good solution that meets the mandate, gives them some added capabilities, but at the same time isn't putting them in that price point to where it's, well, quite frankly, painful.
We hear a lot about a company being granted an STC.
Yes.
I'm probably imagine that not a lot of folks understand what the process is to get an STC from the FAA. So can you take us through that process a little bit?
Well, you know, we were very fortunate. You know, one of the things that we did when we came up with the solution, we did some R&D testing in-house. We got the transponders, we got the control head, and we started doing some testing to verify our theory that the system would operate. We sat down with our in-house electrical DER, went through the process and realized that because of some of our additional work scope, we went ahead and looked at somebody outsourced to assist us with this. And we actually were very fortunate to get teamed up with Peregrine out in the Denver, Colorado area, who worked with us on the STC to where they handled a lot of the paperwork going through the Denver ACO. We handled a lot of the mod, a lot of the kitting for it, and then we teamed up in Denver to do the actual prototype. The downfall with the STC process, or not downfall, but the painful part of it, we'll say, is when a technician goes out to do a job, they have the installation manual, they know the interface, they wire it up, sign it off, and have a nice day. Problem is when you're going through the STC process, there's a lot more environmental specs that have to be laid out for the FAA to see what the unit can do, if it meets the qualifications. There's steps where you're going through a ton of paperwork before you ever even turn a wrench on the aircraft to get it going. Typically, STCs do range up in the 10 to 12 month span. We were very fortunate working with Peregrine. We actually had the STC start to finish in 7 months. The STC was awarded to us from the FAA October 31st, Halloween last year. So that was our trick and our treat for Halloween. We got our STC letter from the FAA signed off, and you know, it can be a little painful, to be honest with you. I'm definitely glad I am not an engineer because I can't, all that math and all the environmental testing drives me nuts. I just want to run some wires, hook it up, turn it on, and see it work well.
And see it light up and go.
That's right. I don't need to know the temperatures. I just want it to work.
But how then does the coming rewrite of Part 23 begin to, and an easing of some of those certification standards, how does that affect that STC process and companies like yours that work on such things?
Well, in all honesty, it doesn't affect it a whole lot. When you look at the FAA's mandate, going ahead and allowing customers to start using some STCs off the AML. Our approved models list covers Hawkers, Lears, Citations. We've got, actually right now we're in the process of adding Sabre liners, Astras, Westwinds. So we're covering a large variety of your standard business jets that are in the Part 25 span. What a lot of people are doing, and we've actually had some of our clients go ahead and they still purchase the STC because you still have to have the right to use the data. So when you use that FAA memorandum, you have to have something to reference. You still need your flight manual supplement, you still need your ICA, you still need all your standard sign-off data, and without that right to use, you're really not signing it off in a legal format. So when companies go out like ours and do an STC like this, and even CMD's got some great STCs, as well with the TDR-94s, you still have the ability to maintain a strong STC, and really what it does, it gives us more flexibility to not do so much more work to add aircraft, and we're able to allow customers to go ahead and have flexibility to move the STC around without us having to spend all the money and doing a whole nother STC.
Your company works in component sales, aircraft modifications, things of that nature. How does this fit into that overall business model with Southeast Aerospace?
Well, Southeast Aerospace, when it comes to avionics, has always covered anything they can. Aircraft modifications, we do a lot of kitting for the U.S. government, equipment repair, equipment sales, exchanges, and the STCs, we've always done them. If you go to the Southeast Aerospace website, you'll see we have, if I remember correctly, it's a little more than 12 to 13 STCs, from everything from Boeing aircraft all the way down to a 172. A little flexibility there.
Yeah.
And our engineers are able to go ahead and cover rotorcraft or fixed wing. And what it's done is, doing this STC has just allowed us the ability to separate a little bit more, to be able to supply a lot of the avionics shops out there with the ability to do additional mods. Fact of the matter is, we always talk about how the fact we're down to 33 months on the mandate. 33 months until it's done, and the number of aircraft with the number of shops, it's a lot of work to be done. And in this industry, the only way we're able to successfully take care of the customer is when we work together. So when an STC like this is developed, we're able to be more of a support staff for your other shops out there. And the nice thing is, when they come to us, whether it's for the STC equipment parts, they know when they come to Southeast Aerospace, we're there to support them, we're there to help them. And whatever it is, from kitting to engineering, we're there to take care of it.
Are you finding, particularly in your end of the market, because you're not dealing as much with the general aviation products, you're up in mostly in the business aviation and up into some of the air transport category, are you finding that you're getting higher level of installs? Are people starting to kind of wake up and say, okay, it's time to get this done, as far as the mandate is concerned?
Well, it gets flexible, to be honest with you. My background, I ran a piston 145 shop for Sarasota Avionics, for a long time. And when you look at the piston realm, you look at the general aviation jet realm, like when I was at Banyan, and what we do, the interesting with Southeast is we're so diverse, so flexible with what we've done, and a good majority of it has been military the last several years. You're seeing that people are trying to find the variations that fit them, and when you look at a lot of the maintenance shops, they're finding that these sort of solutions that are quick, easy, simple, takes care of the customer, they're tending to lean that direction quite a bit more. When you're looking at some of those larger mods, I think what you're finding more is people trying to retrofit their fleet. When you're looking at the G5000s, the G1000s, the Collins Fusion, I think those are the areas where you're seeing people just try to extend the life of some of our classic or legacy aircraft and find a way to keep them going much longer without having to go out and trade it in for a newer aircraft. So you're seeing quite a mix, going into the larger mods. But at this point, it's anybody's game on what the direction they're going to take.
That's an interesting perspective that I hadn't considered, is that when you're talking about some of these retrofits in legacy airplanes that are, older model business jets in particular, where that break point is to where it's more cost effective maybe to consider
Aero-News Network's
if not a new business jet, then a later model previously flown business jet. that might already have the equipment in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, it's a stretch because you look at what some of the companies are doing. I mean, Nextant has really done a fantastic job with going ahead and basically refurbishing King Airs and Beast Jets, and you know, being able to take an older aircraft that, you know, maybe the hours aren't too bad, but they're able to completely give new interior, new engines, you know, give a nice paint job, and they're basically taking a 1980s aircraft and making it look like a 2015 aircraft, you know. And the benefits there really, when you come down to it, is are you able to get what you need out of the aircraft? You know, you can go ahead and get a nice Citation 650, you know, probably at $1 million, but you go into a newer Citation, well,
yeah,
you could probably get 3 old ones, maybe 4, and then retrofit all 4 of them. You know, so I mean, it's something that, you know, you're seeing, I think, a lot more of across the board when it comes to piston aircraft or business jets. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more people going ahead and taking those legacy birds that have systems that they can work with and be a little bit more flexible on, because then they end up with what they want, not just what the OEM went ahead and did at the factory.
Do you find, and I'm hearing from some of the avionics dealers, the people who are selling avionics, that customers are now coming to them and saying, here's what I want, as opposed to what do I need? Is there any of that in your end of the business?
Never. No, you know, the reality when it really comes down to it, you know, you're always having people coming in. You know, they went to Sun and Fun, or they went to Oshkosh, and they saw blank, you know, and they got to have it. And they come in and they tell you, this is what I saw, this is what I want, this is my aircraft. And it's good to have owners that are really active, wanting to know what they're looking for, paying attention to what's out there, because, you know, when you get somebody that comes in there blind, it's a lot harder to give them exactly what they need. So when they come in there with an idea, it's a lot easier to help mold them and shift them to different directions to say, well, that's a good unit, these are the pros to it. However, with your aircraft, you'd probably be better off going here or there. So it does benefit when people come in with that, because you're able to guide them a little bit better, other than when they come in, I need ADS-B. That's about it.
Well, and here then are your choices, and then you've got a lot of education to do at that point.
And you know, and that's kind of you know, sadly, you know, when you look at ADS-B, and that's the part that I think has made it difficult for some people, is when you look at it, you have so many options to choose from. You know, I mean, even if you strictly went to the 1090 ES transponders and you ignored the UAT units, you still have, I mean, some companies have 3 or 4 options. You know, and then you have other companies developing new units, and there's so many variations out there that it's really coming to a point, I think, where a lot of shops are basically, okay, these are the units that I am comfortable with, these are the units that I deal with majority of the time, this is what I'm promoting. And I think that's what you see quite a bit, because there's a comfort level. You know, as a technician, if I'm installing a system and I know that when I'm done with this install, the customer is going to have a working system, you're not going to have any complaints, you're going to push that product. You know, but like I said, there's so many people coming out of the woodworks with, you know, I mean, there's got to be, what, 7 or 8 different manufacturers of an ADS-B transponder, and each of them probably have at least 2. So,
and different features and so many different things, and a lot of times probably what the person saw last was the one that they want.
Oh yeah.
So tell us about, at Southeast Aerospace, you said that there are some that you prefer to work with more than others, or that you have a comfort level with. You might as well go ahead and you can tell us what those are if you would like to.
Well, I mean, when you really look at it, we'll say the powerhouses of it, you know, when it comes to business jets today, you're really looking at either TDR-94s from Rockwell Collins, or you're looking at the NXT 700 from ACSS and Honeywell. So when you see those 2 units, those are pretty much your dominant units in the business jet market. Both of them have extremely good reliability. Both of the companies are very reputable, and they make sure the systems are ready to go. You know, the benefit from us is being able to go in with the Garmin units. You know, right now, companies like Elliott have done the GTX 3000, another fantastic unit for the Hawkers. We went ahead and did the 345, 335 strictly because of the fact if you don't have TCAS 2, don't want TCAS 2, don't need TCAS 2, you can save a whole lot of money. You know, and I mean, so when you look at the business jet side of the house, those are really your predominant, you know, those are your powerhouses, you know, between Garmin, Rockwell Collins, and ACSS with Honeywell on the NXT 700. And on the, you know, when you get into your Part 23, your lighter aircraft, I mean, Obviously, I'm a Garmin fan myself. I mean, I've probably done more Garmin installs than anything else. But you know, Trig makes a fantastic transponder as well. When you look over at Avidyne, Honeywell, I mean, Becker recently announced, you know, their transponder that they're working with Freeflight on, and that as well could end up being a really good unit once they finish their TCAS 2 certifications.
So when somebody comes in the door, and let's talk about at the high end of the market, because that seems to be what you're dealing a lot with. Somebody comes into the door, says, "I need this." What's their airplane on the ground time to get an installation on an average, or is there an average?
Well, if you look at it from a base standpoint, customer comes in, he's like, "Look, I just want to be compliant. I don't care about LPV. I don't care about, you know, any sort of WAS GPS. Just get me compliant and get me out the door." You know, you can easily have a 5 to 7 day downtime. You know, when you're sitting there looking at an aircraft, drop the headline or get an antenna up there. As long as you have a DER that you work well with to get the structural work done, you can be in that 5 to 7 day downtime. Where the extended lead times start to come in is when a customer says, you know what, if I'm going to put the aircraft down, I'm going to add to capability. I'm going to go ahead and go to Universal, and I'm going to get a nice UNS 1LW. I'm going to get the LPV, and I'm going to have a good operational FMS that is going to take me through the next 10 years. You know, and that's the nice thing when you have a customer that's not just looking at here and now, but he's looking 10 years down the road. And that's
and
really
has
where
the
you see
budget to do
benefit.
that.
Well, you know, the thing I always tell people, I'm like, look, the budget is always painful. You know, when my wife says she needs something, I always hurt because I know the budget's going to be painful. But at the same time, is it going to take us 5 years, 10 years? You know, is that spending now going to save me money later? You know, and that's why I love my wife. She saves me later, you know. But at the same time, when you look at these better units, that's what takes care of it. When you sit there and you upgrade to that UNS, you know, WAS FMS, you're no longer having to worry about your old FMS dying and not being able to find a replacement. Because that's what a lot of people are fighting with now is their FMSs die, who can fix it, can they get an exchange? So doing that upgrade, it hurts now, but 10 years down the road, typically you're happy you did it because you have a unit that can still be fixed.
Perfect. Well, Nathan, we are out of time. Thank you very much for coming by and talking with us this afternoon, and I hope you're having a good show and things go well for you, as the week progresses.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right, and we're going to come right back in just a minute and have more from AEA 2017, the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show in New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm Tom Patton on Aero TV. We'll be right back. And we're back. Good afternoon. We are live at AEA 2017 in New Orleans, Louisiana at the New Orleans Convention Center. I'm Tom Patton and you're watching Aero TV. Very happy to have you along with us this afternoon. And my next guest is Tony Rios. And Tony is with Avionica. And you're working right now, Tony, on some interesting products that have to do with flight data recording in a market that's not normally that hasn't normally been associated with flight data recording. So tell us about what you've got going on.
That's an excellent point. Yes, the market is usually in the air transport and airline world, but what's driving a lot of the interest today is, of course, gathering data, and data is good on all markets, including the markets we're exploring here. So today the small miniaturized product allows it to be installed on everything from 777 aircraft to the Pilatus airplane, and even down to the Honda jets, which are brand new in the market. And the idea is to trend the flight data off these airplanes, make them more efficient, increase the safety, and just make them overall more efficient in operations.
What kind of data do you gather with this device?
The device is able to retrieve or record everything from what's called FOQA data, that's the aircraft parameters, to the engine parameters, engine health data. So engine manufacturers can use this to retrieve the engine health and track it, trend it over time, and make improvements on the engine designs, as well as offer services to the operator to improve the engine life on wing the airplane.
So your black box is actually a black box.
Yes.
And we all know that on transport category airplanes, those boxes are orange.
Right, that's right.
But does it fulfill much the same function?
It does, actually. It records exactly the same flight data that the black box records. One of the differences is our product will record up to 2,000 hours of flight data, whereas black box is designed to record on the order of 25 to 30 hours of flight data. But it is recording the same flight data. In the applications that we mentioned earlier, for example, on the Honda jet, for example, it would record the engine parameters directly off the FADEC Avionics. So that would be a little different than what the black box would record. So it's an addition to black box data.
Are these kinds of devices required in business jets at this point in the market that you're looking for? Or is this something that operators are finding as a nice-to-have item?
It is a nice-to-have item. Today, business jet operators are required to maintain what's called a safety management system, an SMS system. FOQA is a component of SMS, and so therefore, right now, it's not a requirement to have a FOQA program, but it's certainly a business operational improvements, efficiency improvements, and something that a lot of business operators are using to operate their aircraft more efficiently and more safely.
Do you think, or do you see a time when it is a requirement for somebody in that category?
It is a requirement in other areas of the world, in other markets, and so yes, we do see that coming, where the benefits seen in other markets will also translate to here in the U.S. as well.
When you record flight data like this, and I know that it's mostly for, as you say, safety management systems and engine maintenance and things of that nature, but is this also something that down the road, heaven forbid something should happen to an airplane, the NTSB would start to look at to try and help figure out what happened in any situation where they might be involved?
Yes, and actually Avionica has been doing flight data systems now for about 25 years, and in our history we have cooperated with the NTSB on certain incidences that they were investigating. Much like a pilot, the NTSB is going to use all available data. So whether it's a crash-worthy data recorder or whether it's a GPS card or a GPS chip, they're going to take everything that they can. And so from that perspective, yes, we've coordinated with NTSB before on the type of data this will record.
And do these particular devices that you have here with you today, are they robust enough to be able to maintain data through a catastrophic event?
Not certified to. We do use complete solid-state memory and solid-state parts, so it is actually very reliable and very robust, as you're saying. But we've never qualified it to the same standards as a flight data recorder has. So.
Do you also do voice recording as well, or is it all data?
It's all data at this point.
Do you have plans for a voice recorder at some point down the road?
We actually have designs that are capable, but we have not seen that market for us yet in a quick action recorder application.
Now, your device is already standard on several models. Take us through where you're already have an install base.
So there are approximately 8,000 of these devices around the world today. Those installations are, again, anywhere from 777 air transport aircrafts to Bombardier fleets, Challengers and Globals, CRJs. So today we have, Bombardier has this available right off the line. You can order your new Challenger 650 with this direct from Bombardier. You can also, a lot of them provide service bulletins as well. So Bombardier has service bulletins to apply to a retrofit fleet. And then Avionica, we maintain our own STCs. So we do have an STC today that has 300 aircraft models, approvals for 300 aircraft models on it. So that pretty much covers the population of aircrafts out there today that would require a data recording technology.
And you have a promotion going on for certain models of business jets. Tell us about that.
Yes, the promotion enables not just a data recorder, or I should say, in our business, in our market, we not only record the flight data, but we also provide an automated way of getting the flight data off the airplane. And this is through a 4G cellular device. And what we're doing as part of our promotional period is to offer not just the recorder, but also the service of retrieving that flight data automatically for 1 year of service. So an operator who is interested in trying this out for the first time could install this and operate it for 1 year for very little cost, basically the cost of the part itself.
How does the end user receive the data? And then how are they able to interpret that?
When you're using the data for focal purposes, which is again the flight quality assurance, this is the safety aspects, Avionica can provide the service of retrieving the flight data and delivering it directly to the company that's doing the service for them. So there are many focal service providers out in the world today. For example, GE has a service, Sajam has a service. So what we can do is we can deliver that flight data directly to GE for their focal program. We can also deliver simultaneously the data to a maintenance base where they would then analyze the data for maintenance purposes as well. So our data delivery service can deliver to many points simultaneously.
And how does that data delivery service work? What's your backbone like?
Well, Avionica manages a global network called AvSync, and so in combination with our SIM card, you can retrieve the flight data from anywhere in the world your aircraft might fly. And what we do is we establish secure network between the unit on the aircraft and the customer's server. And so we take the data from the aircraft directly to the to the customer server, or again, like I said, to the focal provider directly through private networks. But it is a global network. It works anywhere, basically almost anywhere in the world.
And it's getting a little down in the weeds, but is that a wireless transmission, or does somebody come out and plug an RJ45 into the airplane and download data?
Yeah, we have both options. You know, and this product here is a modular system. So if you were to start with a data recorder, you would do what you said. Somebody would have to walk up with a cable, with a laptop, retrieve the flight data off the unit, and then find their own way to transmit it. But many of our customers have opted to add this little component to the front of it, which is automates it through the wireless. So it's a 4G type cellular network, and it's capable of 4G speeds, and then also backward compatible with 3 and 2G, as depending on what region of the world you're in.
And how secure is that?
We use VPN type of security to secure those lines, or secure those communications from anywhere in the world back to our headquarters. So it's very secure.
Oh, excuse me. How pervasive are you finding is now the desire for this kind of data? And I know you said that a lot of it has a requirement aspect to it, but are you finding that you're getting customers who say, I just need to know this, whether or not somebody tells me that I have to know it?
There's a transition in our industry towards something that's called predictive analysis, and that, up to now, many operators would remove parts based on cycle times, and these cycle times are established by the OEMs as saying this is what we believe the life of the part may be. problem with that is either A, you're taking a part off the airplane before it's actually before it's done its service life, or you're surprised by an early failure. And in either case, it's an operational efficiency deduction. So a lot of companies, and companies like GE, for example, have unveiled programs called Predicts for GE that falls more into a predictive analysis, where you can predict the service life of a certain part by looking at its data, at its life over time. So to your point, yes, there are safety aspects and there are regulatory aspects to equipping, but there are other drivers that have to do with just efficiency of operations and trending data over time for this predictive type analysis.
So can the device, does it have the capability of tracking, as you said, a specific component within an engine or within an aircraft and letting the operator know, oh, this is about to fail, or you have issues with a certain item that you might want to go and have your people look at and see if it's time to replace it?
That's absolutely right. There is a certain science to doing that data analytics, and so you'll find that there are, again, companies like GE that are applying scientists to doing appropriate algorithms to do that sort of predictive analysis. So many operators, the way that I see this happening is many operators will share their data with a GE for that service of predicting the specific component failure. And hey, like you said, go take a look at tail number so-and-so. We believe the oil pump is going to be failing in the next week or so. And you can replace that oil pump before it causes a ground stop of the airplane.
So if you extrapolate that out then, and I'm just kind of speculating here, but if you had companies that would share that data, you might be able to come up with some kind of a broad database pool of information that would give overall operators a better idea of the lifespan of the components of their airplane.
That's an excellent point. You can profile, the parts, and that's exactly right. Some data analytics will eventually take us there, but what I see is, and what I find fascinating is, even just a little bit of data almost immediately begins to give us those profiles. So yes, you're absolutely right.
Is there? We hear about in the air transport category that devices will talk to a centralized location during flight that would transmit data as far as engine parameters and things of that nature. Is that one of those things that this device can do, or is that something that you might be looking at down the road that would give that business jet operator the same opportunity to track what's going on inside their airplane during flight?
So today around the world there are, ICAO, for example, has come up with some recommendations on how to track airplanes. Those recommendations have to do with determining where the airplane is in the world. But to your point, what we see is the opportunity to not only say where the airplane is, but what the health of the health of the airplane is. So yes, we actually are able to tie this technology, this data record technology, to our satellite-based systems. We have an Iridium SATCOM system as well that we offer. So those two together will provide exactly that function, is look for certain parameters on the airplane, and when a certain exceedance is detected, to be able to transmit some of that off the airplane to let everybody know that that's happening in flight. And then how is that information relayed back to the pilot flying the airplane, or is it relayed back so that he might be able to take some kind of corrective action before there's a failure? So the data coming off the airplane is, of course, a data channel. We offer the voice channel as well. So the maintenance operations on the ground could dial a phone number and call the pilot and say, we just received this message. Are you aware this is happening? Can we work together to get it resolved?
It's fascinating stuff.
Really is.
It's fascinating stuff, Tony, and I'm sure that as the technology improves, that there will be more and more opportunities for the airplane to talk back to the pilot, and kind of it starts to almost be like HAL. It says, excuse me, something's going on back here that you need to be aware.
Yeah. You can see how we get closer to the automated fixing of itself, and it's really interesting where we're going with this. Absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to come over and talk with us from Avionica. It's, as I said, it's very interesting stuff, and I hope you're having a really good show here at AEA 2017.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. We're going to take another short break, and when we come back, we've got more from AEA 2017, live from the New Orleans Convention Center, New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm Tom Patton. We'll be right back.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 60th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Freeflight Systems is expanding its business into the Part 25 aviation industry through new avionics shop dealers, manufacturer partnerships, and STC programs. With a focus on the next-gen airspace and remote-mounted sensor systems, Freeflight Systems will continue to be a leader in the next-gen airspace. Visit freeflightsystems.com for details.
Have you ever wanted big glass in your cockpit but didn't have the space? Now with Avidyne's IFD series touchscreen GPS navigators and our new IFD 100 iPad app, having big glass in your cockpit is finally within reach.
Redbird Flight Simulations is dedicated to revolutionizing flight training by designing, manufacturing, and delivering affordable and innovative flight training technologies. Each Redbird device is designed to enhance the training experience for pilots of all levels, from student to ATP. Redbird is quickly becoming the industry standard for flight training. Since Redbird introduced its revolutionary FMX in 2007, colleges, universities, and flight training operations around the world have integrated Redbird products into their curriculum. It's time to discover what Redbird can do for you. Join the migration.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight four-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.
Today's pilots must have power for electronic flight bags, tablets, iPads, and communication devices. The TA102 dual USB charging port delivers more power with less hassles. Available from your local Avionics dealer.
Southeast Aerospace teamed up with Garmin International, Gables Engineering, and Peregrine Avionics to bring the most cost-effective and flexible ADS-B solution to the business aviation community. Our Part 25 AML STC is available for non-TCAS-2 Beechjet, Citation, Hawker, Learjet, and Falcon Jet. Visit seaerospace.com for more details.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Explore no limits flying in the FAA-certified Sea Ray Amphibious LSA, one of the top 3 best-selling LSAs in the U.S. Progressive Aerodyne Sea Ray comes equipped with a Rotax engine and exhibits extraordinary handling on land, water, and in the air. Check it out at www.searay.com.
Alrighty, folks. Well, we're back. We're live. Tom Patton is going to take a break. He'll be joining us toward the end of the show so we can do a little bit of a wrap-up. Make a long story short, you're stuck with me for the rest of the day. We will be finishing up around 3 o'clock. We are live from the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show in New Orleans, Louisiana, the Big Easy. Happy to introduce Pete Ring, Freeflight Systems, obviously a leader in the there we go, ADS-B segment. Pete, what's new?
So for this show, what we're really talking about is we take the existing ADS-B backbone that we have in place today and we start expanding out and going into additional markets than we've currently been in. We've done a little bit more this year with rotorcraft. We're doing a little bit more as we start to go up market with the basis for the ADS-B boxes with both Ranger and our SBAS GNSS GPS position sources as we start to go up into the business class of aircraft and into the commercial class of aircraft. Specifically for this show, starting last week, we started a partnership with Becker Avionics, where we're going to be offering great folks, great products, really good products. It's a DO260B compatible, TCAS-2 capable diversity transponder that we're going to be bringing to the market here in the United States for them. Couple that with our 1203C, and it's an ideal low-cost solution for that business class and up sort of marketplace that really doesn't have a economical solution today. You know, everything in that category right now, if you go with the manufacturer options, you're really 6 figures and up for an ADS-B upgrade, and that's not really terribly advantageous to anybody. So we can do it with the equipment. The equipment's going to run about $30,000 for the GPS, the transponder. We can add the capabilities of ADS-B in also to the aircraft, and what we've discovered is a lot of folks actually want that. You know, it's a cool feature for them. And they don't necessarily want it on the displays that they have there. They want it on their iPads. Because even, you know, as we move up into that higher market, everybody's still flying with iPads in that marketplace, and every day more and more are flying with them. So the ability to be able to display that data wirelessly into a, you know, for the lack of a better term, a legacy aircraft. You know, by legacy, what's a legacy aircraft? Something that was built before 2005 in today's avionics generation. So to be able to bring those sorts of capabilities to that marketplace is a real good thing for us and for the customers.
One of the other things Freeflight's known for, of course, is radar altimeters. What's happening in that market right now for you?
So it's kind of an exciting time for us. We actually just shipped our 3,500th system for radar altimeters lifetime to date. It's a big time for radar altimeters right now. We've got a mandate that's pending for all operators in the United States that are either airborne EMS operators or they're operating at a Part 135 in the rotorcraft marketplace. So if you're a 135 operator, charter operator, or you're an airborne EMS operator, you have to be equipped with a radar altimeter by late April. And the FAA has said that they're not going to make any additional exceptions for anybody that hasn't equipped yet. So it's a great system. We can interface with anybody that has a display that could display that. If they don't have that, we offer the display as well to give them a complete solution.
Well, it's quite a product line, to say the least. Where do you see yourself going forward, especially in light of, one, the 2020 mandate? I mean, we're planning now for the next couple of years, but the big question is, what do we do afterwards?
That's a good question, and there's a lot of things that we could do afterwards. The thing that we're working on right now that's going to happen hopefully for us here right before 2020, which is kind of ideal timing, we're working on the replacement for our 2101, which is the old Trimble navigation system that anyone that's flown an airplane in the last 30 years has probably seen one or come across one or a version thereof of it.
Oh, reliable.
Yeah, it's still reliable. You'd be surprised. We still sell quite a few of those systems today, which is mind-boggling to me because it is such a legacy product, if you will. But
there's definitely an ain't broke, don't fix it mentality in this business.
Yeah, and I love that. So we're working on the replacement for that. It's the 2301. It'll be a full FMS, SBAS GNSS capable unit. Okay. It'll have a much bigger display. It'll be much more modern, but at the same time, it'll still fit in the same form factor. So it'll be a form factor replacement for the 2101. Form factor replacement for form factor functionality. If you want to upgrade to the LPV capabilities of it, or add some of the potential future ADS-B functionality that it'll have, there will be some wiring change behind that, but it's still the same form factor for it to fit into where the 2101s are. And that's a huge install base out there today.
I've been putting a number of the manufacturers on the spot today with a simple question that I've had a lot of fun with the answers. And that's basically this. To the community that we reach, which is, you know, sport aviation, general aviation, commercial, military, aerospace, you name it. What do people out there generally do not know about Freeflight that they need to know right now?
So what they need to know that they don't know is we've actually been around for 25 years plus. You know, we've got our history.
Drinking age.
Yeah, we're the legal drinking age. Yeah, exactly. With our heritage through Trimble Aviation and Terra Products, in 2008 the company was refocused with our current level of ownership to be focused on this next gen marketplace. So we're not a you know, sort of a one-trick pony where we have one product line that we're working on. We have a whole bunch of different things, and we're not somebody that's, you know, just here for the moment. You know, we've been around for a long time. We're going to continue to be around for a long time, which means that if you buy our products, we're going to be here in the future to help support them and keep you flying way beyond any mandates that are currently pending.
As a major player in the ADS-B mindset right now, we've watched a growing need for people to get real about 2020, that we're not likely, well, snowball's chance in hell is the way I've heard it put, to get any extensions from the FAA on January 1, 2020. Why do you see this delay taking place? Why are people holding back? Because it's not going to get cheaper, it's not going to get easier, and there's going to be a heck of a wait if you're waiting into 2019.
There is still a pretty solid belief out there that, amongst the operators and the pilots out there that are flying with this equipment, that it actually will get cheaper.
How? Can we make them out of cardboard?
My economics teacher in college would be very proud of me by saying that in all of my studies, when supply goes up, when demand goes up, prices usually follow. So the fact that it's getting cheaper, I don't think it's getting any cheaper. I think, if anything, we've started to see incremental price increases. A little bit on the product side, but where you're going to see it is on the installation side. That guy that's, any of these shops, these avionics shops that are doing these installations, these guys are booked out 3-4 months right now, and we're, 700 days ahead of the mandate right now? So that's only going to get worse. And if you have to fly your aircraft, if it's a revenue-generating aircraft or if it's helping you generate revenue, you have to fly your aircraft, and you're going to be that guy that's wanting to spend that extra money to get ahead of that line. Right. And that's really, we're starting to see that in some places.
And if you haven't done it by now, be prepared for a rude awakening.
Yep.
My goodness. So if somebody decides to get serious right now, what advice do you give to them to not only get to the head of the line, but make sure it gets done right?
So you gotta ask yourself some basic questions when you're looking at ADSB and equipping with ADSB. You have to understand what your flight profile is today, how you fly today, and how you're planning on flying the aircraft in the future, and making sure you find a solution that is best equipped for that flight profile and for where you want to go with the aircraft, whether it's outside the country, certain altitudes and so forth. Be familiar with all the manufacturers that are out there, and also take a moment to consider what sort of long-term support you're actually going to have down the road after this mandate comes, and you're stuck with this equipment that you need in order to fly in the airspace. Do your homework, do your research. There's plenty of great services out there that help you with that. We've got on our website, we've got the ADSB University. If you're still trying to understand how the technology works,
good information there.
You can watch it. And, it's amazing. I had those videos have been out 4 years or so now, and I had somebody come up to me this week that said, I had to give a seminar, and I watched your videos, and they helped me get prepared to teach this seminar to somebody else. I said, I took a whole bunch of photos of it. I said, that's probably a copyright infringement, but we'll allow it this one time. But there's plenty of good information. I know a lot of the manufacturers offer some sort of tutorial that helps you through the technology of it, and also the solutions that are available to you. So do your homework.
There you go. And finally, Pete, how can people get more information on Freeflight Systems right now?
Well, they can do a couple different ways. You can go to visit our main website, which is freeflightsystems.com. We also have a website that is dedicated specifically towards our 978 ADSB product lines, which is equipit2020.com, a little bit of a stolen branding there from our friends in Washington, D.C. And on there you can find a dedicated website that's focused for our 978 technologies. But our primary website, freeflightsystems.com, will get you all the information you possibly need. And all of our direct contact information is on there as well if you want to speak to us directly.
Super. Pete, as always, you're a good interview. We sure appreciate your time as we're getting ready to close out Day 3 of AEA 2017, the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. We'll be back in a moment with Rick Perry, Mr. Regulation, from the AEA staff themselves. And to make a long story short, we're heading down the end of the patch here. It's going to be a good end. So we thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, John.
All righty. We'll be right back. Alrighty, folks. It was a quick break. We're back. Finally, Rick Perry, Mr. Regulation, the guy we just hate to hear from sometimes because it's never kind of the news we want to hear. Rick, of course, does a myriad of jobs for AEA, but always constant. I guess every year of the 9 years we've done live, you've been a guest. So
I think so.
So God help you. By now you should be good at it. So I don't want to hear any excuses.
All right, sounds good.
Rick, I'll tell you what. Let's put it right on the table. What's the good news? What's the bad news coming out of the Puzzle Palaces in Washington, D.C.? And you got 15 minutes or less.
I got to tell you, this is one of those years, there's not a lot of bad news.
Shock.
I know. The agency is, well, if change in and of itself is bad news, then that's the bad news.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, the change is solid. It is the right things in the right directions. Like any change, the pendulum swings a little too far sometimes, and we've got to bring it back in to find the new norm.
Yeah.
But the reality is that all things considered, we've got a lot of very progressive change going on. We've got the Part 23 rewrite that came out in December, becomes effective the end of August.
Let's stop there for a second. I've heard so many different opinions on what that's ultimately going to mean to the industry. You're more in touch on the regulatory side than anybody I know, so I'm going to put it to you. Good thing, bad thing, what's going to happen?
Good thing, solid thing, progressive thing, and we're already seeing results.
Okay.
We're already seeing benefits. We're not going to see a new airplane at twice the safety and half the price tomorrow. But we're seeing benefit right away. The buzzword that comes with that's the safety continuum, okay? That safety continuum is permeating everything we're touching right now. When you look at the EAA STC that came out last year at Sun and Fun, it is a function of the safety continuum. And as you bring that into what I anticipate to see another round of products at Sun and Fun in Oshkosh this year, it's the safety continuum. It is a progressive approach that allows for scalability based on risk. Okay? So, in other words, how much effort should the industry and the agency spend on a placard? If the placard fails, it fades, the wings don't fall off the airplane.
Right.
So how much effort should we really spend on it versus, a high-stress turbine blade, right? And that's what the safety continuum is bringing to the market. It's allowing...
Sounds a little bit like common sense.
Oh, don't go there. Don't go there. We're really trying hard not to overemphasize the fact that it's logical and makes sense for a change.
Oh, that's right. That's anathema in Washington.
Exactly.
They just kick you right out of town. Okay, good point. Sorry about that.
So,
I apologize.
So what we're
Mea
seeing
culpa.
is we're seeing a scalability.
Okay.
And I use the word scalability. They use risk-based, but fundamentally, because we look at risk, it allows for scaling. But we're looking at scalability in design, in certification, in production, and in installation. And so for a low risk, low public environment, it's an appropriate level of safety and an appropriate level of oversight.
Okay.
For a high risk, high public safety area, it's enhanced oversight and enhanced involvement. It is so progressive that it's hard to get your mind wrapped around it. But we're seeing those benefits last year, and those are all fundamentally related to the philosophy of the change. The other thing that's important to understand is when in the 23 they've cleaned 23 out to a performance-based rule. They're not being prescriptive on how to design things. If you ask the government to design things, we're driving 57 Chevys, right? So they said, all right, well, what's the safety? The method of compliance, the prescriptive pieces, goes into consensus standards that have the ability to turn in a very dynamic way. So if you look at government, and this isn't FAA, this is government in general, you're looking at 5 to 7 years to produce a government standard, a rule, a regulation, an AC, something like that. By leveraging public consensus standards, we can have standards for new and novel technologies in 2 years.
Okay.
So as cell phone technology, as the products here on the trade floor, you know, you see this change in technology. You get a new product introduced here, it may be 5 to 7 years before we have a standard to be able to install it. Under this new philosophy, with 23, with rotorcraft, to some extent with 25, you're seeing these products having a 2-year gestation period instead of a 7-year gestation period.
We need that desperately.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. So I'm absolutely a fan of this.
Okay. Let's go over to ADSB in 2 areas.
Okay.
One, the 2020 deadline is a 2020 deadline.
Okay.
There's been this huge delay out there. We don't know exactly why. And I found out today, for instance, that the rebate program has barely been touched.
Not a fair statement.
Not a fair statement? Okay.
Not a fair statement.
Tell me what's happening.
So ADSB, there's a couple of things. You know, one is that the rebate program. Shame on anybody who's not applying for it. Okay. That's qualified.
Right.
Single engine pistons, so we're roughly about halfway through the program, and about 25% of the money has been allocated.
Okay. Like I said, barely been touched.
That's not fair.
No,
that's
come
not
on.
fair.
That thing should have been filled like yesterday.
However,
yes,
the purpose of the program is to promote ADSB, to create the conversation. When you look at rebate programs for big screen TVs, you look at rebate programs for electronics, you look at the simplest rebate program for SD cards. A 20% activity level is huge.
Good point.
And we're at 25%, so we beat the national average already. But we're having this conversation, which is the important part. That's what the rebate program is about, to have this conversation. You know, AEA and the AEA shops have all the capacity needed to satisfy the market, okay? It's a natural business thing. If the demand is there, the business will show.
Although 2019 is likely to be real interesting.
Well, the throughput at the capacity, the throughput is going to follow the demand. The more demand, the longer the throughput. That's business. So if you've got somebody that's saying, it's going to get extended, there's a pretty good chance it's not. But more importantly, if you're waiting until 2019, that queue is going to go around the block. It's no different than going down to have your oil changed at the local shop. If you wait till the last minute, it's a long queue. You pick your time, it's a short queue. It's the same thing here. We have plenty of throughput, a reasonable throughput. We don't for the procrastinator. And I have little patience for the procrastinator. We've given them plenty of notice that it's going to be a long line in November of 2019.
Is there anything we can do that we haven't done already, though, to move things along and better educate people and let them know that the reality is such that they're going to get to 2019 and get into big weights? It's certainly going, and because of the fact that the shops are going to be real busy, prices are not going down, they're going to go up, and that it's never more accessible or cheaper than it is right now.
You know, I've got to tell you that as a consumer, I price shop like everybody else. As an aircraft owner, I don't want to spend any more money than I have to. But the reality is that the requirement for surveillance is in the regulations. We have been told at a very long length that it's not going to push. The prices right now are phenomenally within the margin of reason. If you are relying on your aircraft, it's a bad gamble. If your airplane is scheduled for maintenance over the next 3 years, that's the time to schedule your avionics. Piggyback it to having the interior out of your airplane. Leverage that thing. If the larger the aircraft, the larger the need to schedule your place in the queue. The smaller the airplane, the less requirement it is, but nonetheless, the queue is going to be there. It's no different than the airlines at holiday flight times. You know, trying to find that cheap seat, you know, over high travel days doesn't happen. Well, we're no different. It's the same business. And so plan and manage your option. The other thing I would offer is that sounds kind of possibly a little political at this point, but don't believe everything you read in the media. Sorry.
Where's the hook? Let's get this guy out of here.
You know, we just had a big hoopla over one of the products and the FAA's AD. Okay. You know, and my phone starts ringing off the hook, going, "Oh my God!" You know, well, we don't have an AD. We have a proposed AD.
Right.
We have, just like every other AD and every other rulemaking, we have a proposal.
Yeah.
Until you have a final rule, you don't know what the answer is.
Right.
And you don't react because in one person's mind, this is the best solution.
Right.
So I would tell people that don't allow things like the AD that's out there right now to come back and go, oh, the sky's falling and they're going to push this rule, and don't read into it.
Right.
And don't react to a proposal. Wait until the final rule comes out. Those are the things that I would really tell people. ADSB is going to happen. It's going to happen. The queue is going to get longer. The throughput is based on demand. If you want to wait until there's high demand, you're not going to get that flight seat you want.
Right. Flyer beware.
You know?
Well, Rick, we appreciate your time as always. It has been a fascinating week here at AEA 2017, the 60th annual AEA Convention and Trade Show. I can't tell you how much we appreciate working with you all. As you know, ANN's made some pretty strong outreaches in the last couple of years, and especially this year. We're literally going to double the size of the company over the next year. A lot of that is based on the relationship we built with you, the programs we started with you, the things that we learned in that process, including our innovation preview, which is a direct rip-off of the new product introduction, and so much more. So please, if we haven't expressed enough, express it to everybody at AEA how much we've appreciated not just the opportunity to work with you, the things that we've learned from you, but the opportunity to work alongside you in God's work and great stuff for the aviation industry, and most important, being able to get the right stuff from y'all.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty, we're going to take a very short break. Tom Patton will be rejoining me, and unfortunately, he's going to get the left seat, and I don't know how he figured that out, but it's toast as far as I'm concerned. And we'll sum up the day's work, the whole week, and we'll be back to you in just a few moments from the 2017 AEA Convention and Trade Show. We'll be right back. right, we're back. It's been a long day. I'm tired. How about you?
It's been a long day, and it's going to be even longer, but that's not for them to worry about. It's for us to worry about.
What they don't see is that 3 seconds after we fade to black, it's everybody tearing down, packing up, throwing it in the Ford Transit, and dropping some people off at the airport. And for you and I and a whole bunch of others, it's 8 hours back to Sunshine, Florida.
There you go. And it's cold in Florida this week.
Oh, what the hell you say?
Oh.
No.
Yeah, well.
Not allowed.
It's been a really interesting show, Jim, and you know what I've found from talking to folks over the past couple of days here on set is that there's been kind of a shift among people who are coming to booths to talk about, particularly about ADS-B. And that shift has gone from what do I need to here's what I want.
Right.
And the people who are selling ADS-B equipment are getting far more detailed information from their customers about the features they want to see.
Well, it's obviously changed from a speculative to a buyer's market. They're ready to buy, or I should say seller's market at this point. There's been so much speculation as to when the economy would get better, and that's out to lunch. But at the same time, people think that there's a better business climate coming, if not a few other things besides that. And they're prepared to make decisions to buy, to upgrade, to do what's necessary, or maybe even let loose with a whole lot of dollars and even do new airplanes or retrofits. So we'll see how that pans out by the time we arrive. We're Las Vegas next year, I believe, in 2018.
But the other side of that coin is that not only are people maybe a little bit more confident about making that purchase and a little bit more confident that the deadline is not going to slip, but the prices are also coming down.
Right.
Particularly in the Part 23 end of the market, the small airplane end of the market, there are much more affordable options now than there were 3 or 4 years ago when this was all first starting to be discussed. And I think that will be one of those things that really starts to drive the equipage, and then they're going to start running into backlogs at the installation centers.
What were the highlights of this show for you?
Well, the highlights of that, we're doing this obviously because this is what we do.
It was either that or get a real job, and none of us
well,
yeah,
here
are ready for that anytime soon.
But you know, rather than a specific highlight of the show, I think it's more the undercurrent sea change that I talked about a little bit ago. That there is there is starting to be more acceptance, and the pilots and owner operators are starting to say, you know, we finally get this. And I think there really has been, if not a complete sea change, at least that tide is starting to turn, and people are going to get their airplanes equipped probably more than we thought would happen 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, there's definitely been some upgrades here and there. I was glad to see Aviation get their cert on 10.2. The fact that they're building synthetic vision into everything they do in the panel now is quite remarkable in the long run. And I think they're despite the fact that they're not the 600-pound gorilla that a few others are, I think they're going to build themselves a good, solid, strong niche. I'm happy to see GoGo continue to make the progress that they're making, if for no other reason than everybody's ready to chase them and try to do the same thing in their area. And there's a couple of companies here that are continuing to innovate, continuing to build, looking better in the future. There's some products that are starting to really hit their stride. L3's Lynx, if there's a more universally accepted or approved product right now, more excitement built around any single product, it's Lynx. And that's pretty cool when you consider the fact that it's a box that basically does a whole lot of different things reasonably well, but wasn't meant to specialize in any one thing outside of ADS-B. So pretty cool stuff. I like what I'm seeing here, and I like the fact that people are continuing to innovate even incrementally.
And this is where the innovation happens, and we've said that for years, is that the electronics and the avionics segment of the market is where 99% of the innovation is happening, because nobody's building anything that looks like a different airplane. Although, as we start to see, you know, the way out on the horizon, the little the manned multi-rotor copters and those kinds of things that are happening in Europe and coming to the United States at some point. That will be an innovation in airframes, but that will also require a great deal of innovation in aircraft electronics, so we're right back where we are.
Well, as for us, as you may have seen over the last couple of months, we've added quite a bit to the airborne matrix. The AMA drone report has been out for a couple of months. We're just getting ready to finish our first month of production on AUVSI's Airborne Unmanned. which are obviously two major drone programs. We'll shortly be making announcements about a number of airborne adjuncts, say that 3 times fast. We have reached an agreement with Commemorative Air Force. We've reached an agreement with a number of other associations and topic areas. You're going to see some pretty cool stuff from us. In the meantime, we will be at the FAA UAS Symposium in Washington at the end of the month, where we're looking forward to meeting up with the administrator and potentially the Secretary of Transportation. And above and beyond that, we'll be going to Lakeland, of course. It's nice going back there again now, after a few years of a drought. But May 8th to the 11th, you will see us in all our live glory at Exponential, the AUVSI trade show. This, of course, is the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International. It's the commercial end of the industry. It's everything, all things unmanned. And I promise you, you're going to see some exciting stuff there, because not only will we be doing live, but we'll be doing an innovation preview. On behalf of all of us, we thank you for putting up with us. We had some great numbers on the new product introductions on 2 days ago, so we're pleased with that, and certainly pleased with all the respect and attention and such we've gotten for our live work and the airborne work and the like. But let me first of all say thanks to Tom for sticking with us and putting up with all of our nonsense and so forth and so on, and at the same time, my incredible admiration for how many crawfish you can put down in one sitting. He, Nathan,
help.
Mike, and Chris polished. No,
7 pounds. That's what they told us.
Man, they don't call it the Big Easy for nothing. But we've had phenomenal people staffing this, giving us tremendous help. Chris Odom on the camera, Laura Hudson on the camera, Mike Turner helping with marketing, and our Minister of Propaganda. Of course, the man behind the curtain,
Always
Nathan
there.
Cramasino, Dad. Yeah, you see what's going on. There you go. Go on, Nathan. One more bang. And of course, my wife Masako has been running the floor, keeping people on time, bringing us water, helping us in every way possible, and of course getting things printed out all overnight. And all the folks at home, we thank you for all of your great work. We will see you May 8th through the 11th live here at AUVSI. That will be at the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center in Dallas. Any last words, Tom?
I'm ready to get in the car.
Well, shows you what he thinks. For the last time at the 60th Annual AEA Convention and Trade Show from the Montreal Convention Center in New Orleans, Louisiana, we have been proud, pleased to present to you live AEA 2017. We will see you next year from Las Vegas for AEA in May at Expo. Thank you.
Aero-News Network's coverage of the 60th Annual AEA International Convention and Trade Show, live from New Orleans, is brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
The 2-inch MD93 digital clock and USB charger features intuitive operation with 4 modes: local time, universal time, flight timer, and stopwatch. The dual USB charging port supplies 2.1 amps of power per port to personal electronic devices with a USB interface. Learn more at mcico.com.
Freeflight Systems is expanding its business into the Part 25 aviation industry through new avionics shop dealers, manufacturer partnerships, and STC programs. With a focus on the next-gen airspace and remote-mounted sensor systems, Freeflight Systems will continue to be a leader in the next-gen airspace. Visit freeflightsystems.com for details.
It's called AirText Plus. The mobile office is now a true, cost-effective win-win reality, because being available and part of the communication chain keeps you in control. Visit us at www.airtext.aero for more information and get started staying in touch today.
Southeast Aerospace teamed up with Garmin International, Gables Engineering, and Peregrine Avionics to bring the most cost-effective and flexible ADS-B solution to the business aviation community. Our Part 25 AML STC is available for non-TCAS 2 Beechjet, Citation, Hawker, Learjet, and Falcon Jet. Visit seaerospace.com for more details.
Have you ever wanted big glass in your cockpit but didn't have the space? Now with Avidyne's IFD series, touchscreen GPS navigators, and our new IFD 100 iPad app, having big glass in your cockpit is finally within reach.
Concorde's recombinant gas RG series sealed battery technology produces a high-performance battery with the advantages of being pre-tested and fully charged at the factory. Find out more about Concorde's entire line of batteries at www.concordebattery.com. Concorde, the heart of your aircraft.
Sandia introduces the new SAI 340 Quattro TSO'd airspeed, attitude, altitude, and slip. With integral backup battery, safety never looked so good. See it now at www.sandia.aero.
The Bristol Light Sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin Avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
Explore no limits flying in the FAA-certified Sea Ray Amphibious LSA, one of the top 3 best-selling LSAs in the U.S. Progressive Aerodyne Sea Ray comes equipped with a Rotax engine and exhibits extraordinary handling on land, water, and in the air. Check it out at www.searay.com.
The dream is real, a truly affordable personal jet aircraft. The Subsonics Personal Jet Kit is priced at only $42,000. Kit plus engine is still under $100K. Add instruments, upholstery, and paint and you're flying. It's time to put your money where your bucket list is. Learn more at sonicsaircraft.com.
Redbird Flight Simulations is dedicated to revolutionizing flight training by designing, manufacturing, and delivering affordable and innovative flight training technologies. Each Redbird device is designed to enhance the training experience for pilots of all levels, from student to ATP. Redbird is quickly becoming the industry standard for flight training. Since Redbird introduced its revolutionary FMX in 2007, colleges, universities, and flight training operations around the world have integrated Redbird products into their curriculum. It's time to discover what Redbird can do for you. Join the migration.
Based on the popular Sling 2 LSA, the Sling 4 was designed to be the most practical and desirable lightweight 4-place experimental aircraft on the market. Find out more about this 115 horsepower turbocharged airplane at airplanefactory.com.